What's up, guys? This week we have, well, I thought it was going to be Mike Riley, but it's Mike Riley, Joel, and John from Cape Cod Panel.
Those guys don't have last names. Only Mike Riley does.
Well, they do have last names, but I know I would butcher them, so I'm just going to... It's Mike, Joel, and John from Cape Cod Panel. They're a panelization company in Cape Cod, obviously, and they have built a panel company based on the needs that they have found in their otherwise framing company. And if you guys are an avid listener, you know that we've had many of discussions on panelization, the pros and cons. And John, what do you think? Do you think they answered the cons as good as they answered the pros?
They changed my perspective, and I'm on board. I'm ordering my first panelized house soon.
Whoa! And stay tuned for the middle of the podcast when John lands a big job, and literally we have to derail the podcast for a moment to talk about it. Guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Considering a painted wood siding on your next project because you love that look? So do we. Let us show you why architects, builders, and homeowners are switching to Duration for the same great look, but with a much faster installation and far superior performance. To learn more about Duration Polyhash products, please visit their website, durationmillwork.com, and be sure to check them out on Instagram.
See, I feel like I'm having some sort of psychic intuition where we start the podcast off saying that people only install vinyl siding near me, but I think a lot of people install Boral as well. Duration.
Look at that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So if that happens to come up in the middle of the podcast, I think I was incorrect.
So, Mike, I've been trying to get you on this podcast for a couple months. You wanted to do it in person. Then the world said no and basically threw COVID at us. And you finally committed to getting on a Zoom call with us so we could talk about panelization. Before we get into that, little introduction as to who you are, what you do, how you got into this industry.
Oh, well, I'm Mike Riley. This is John Rathbun. And I really grew up with it. My father was a builder, so we were always doing it in the summers, saving up for a golf club or whatever it may be. Not really giving a shit, but when I was 19 or so, I joined a framing crew. It was hard to work with family, and I just really started to love what these guys were doing, and learning that trade as young and dumb as I was at that time. It was just, something that grew on me, and it just hasn't stopped. And Johnny Boy, it's quite a history.
I started out doing construction, anything I could when I was younger, vinyl siding, roofing, learned framing, got out of it for a while and worked in sheet metal industry, sheet metal fabrication, welding. I used to program CNC equipment. Got tired of that and said, time to go back to construction, and joined Mikey's crew about 12 years ago now. I think about 12 years, and we've just been framing houses ever since.
I didn't think they had vinyl siding up there.
I grew up in Lakeville, and we worked in New Bedford, Fall River area a lot. And
there's definitely vinyl siding there.
There's a lot of vinyl siding there, yeah.
So Tyler's from Jersey.
Yep.
There's vinyl siding here.
And Johnny and Nick, obviously Boston, area. You have a lot of vinyl siding out there?
We don't have anything but vinyl siding.
That's what I figured, yeah.
Yeah. No,
it's everywhere.
Honestly, not a lot. There's a lot of vinyl siding. Like, if you're using something other than vinyl, it's like a specialty product. It's more common than not, for sure.
So 12 years ago, you guys started working together, framing houses. You guys were traditionally framing.
Yes. Yep. Always.
So let's get right into the panelization. So when did you guys start the panel company?
2016.
So 5 years ago.
Yep.
And what was the epiphany to make that happen? Sorry, Nick.
No.
It's the Plymouth job, really, right?
Yeah, Plymouth job and other jobs that we did, we panelized just off of blueprints and laid out just like we would if we were stick framing it. Except we built them on a table and stacked them up because the foundation wasn't ready.
Yeah, it was really, being creative to make sure we weren't missing time, make sure the guys weren't missing time. So, we had the space on the job site to be able to do it. And we just went for it. We'll figure it out.
So there wasn't 6 jobs before that, you guys, putting the sticks together and going, we could do this in the shop. I feel like when I started Vintage, there was a whole year of Benny and I going, we could do this. This could be a blast.
Yeah.
You've solved this major issue. Was that happening on the job site? And you guys were like, we got to do it. This is the job.
I mean, as far as I went, I didn't even know panel companies existed. It just seemed like a better way to do things, especially because there is, downtime in what we do. There's jobs never start when they're supposed to. There's always setbacks or whatever it is. So
it's probably the GC's fault.
We learned to get creative with making sure we were, still pushing forward and keeping everyone busy because they all have mouths to feed, everybody that works for you, and so do we. And so it's you have to, think about how to get to the point of nobody's staying.
Well, cover the float where you're trying to make ends meet, but also gain a little bit on that product that they've lost. So that way you guys keep guys moving. Because, when I was framing, you'd lay guys off. It was kind of this rule of thumb. You'd lose a crew, you'd lose some guys. So any given time during the year, you may not have the same 6 guys to frame. And it's funny, the panelization part, I think what I get hung up on a lot of times is whenever I've seen it, it's either modular or it's not assisted living, but the Avalons and the light commercial that you see most of it. And it's I don't want to be associated with any of that. But you guys have kind of, what's that?
Neither do we.
Yeah,
that's what I was telling Nick. And Johnny mentioned this before. He's like, when it was named Cape Cod Panel, I thought the panel part was a bad idea. I'm like, yeah. And so I was telling Nick, I'm just going to change the name to Cape Cod. We'll get panel out of it.
I don't think you can do that.
I think it's just because panels
what do they do?
Panels have a bad reputation because of the commercial projects, and these are big companies outputting massive amounts of panels every day, and the quality is not there. And that's one of the things, I'd heard through some of the guys that I'd worked with that they had worked with panels, and they're terrible. There's nails sticking out everywhere. The sheathing's not nailed right. Just all the bad stuff. And I said,
the point loads don't line up. All that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And if we're going to do panels.
Or why bother in putting the point loads in?
Right.
You see that. It's 24 on center, here's the window, and there's nothing in between.
So it just, the quality was always a big thing with me, making sure that we tried to change people's attitude towards panels and not give them junk.
Yeah, I feel like there's always a joke with those big panel companies that these guys are they're connecting pieces with sledgehammers. The stuff just goes together and they're just wailing it into place, and it's what you see when this stuff goes up. But I've been able to come down to your shop, and John, I've seen kind of what you do. You're taking an architectural set of drawings and you're modeling that completely in 3D. And the project that Mike, I had walked one of yours, that particular one, you guys found a roof issue. Essentially there was this roof line that cut through, I think, a shower or a bathroom. that wasn't picked up on the architectural as an oversight, and by modeling it in 3D, you guys were able to cut it. And that was kind of that first step for me, where it's like, okay, like here's an opportunity. Looking back at my commercial background, the coordination side of it, and I had asked the question. Then it's like, do you guys send this model out to like the plumber and HVAC? And it's like, no, but we'd love to, because it, that forethought, and that's what really attracted me towards the planning through this.
Yeah, I mean, the planning is huge too. It saves a lot of time in the field. We, like you said, we even just a little mistake, like a bathroom with a roof, cutting through it, or one of the big ones I catch a lot is beams sticking through a roof line, and the engineers designing it in 2D, and once it gets modeled, you go, oh, that's a problem. And we catch those mistakes before anything gets built.
And the thing is, it happens on every single job. There are errors that Johnny finds while he's designing. And I don't think there's a single job that isn't like that, unless it's a shed.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, it depends on the architect and the engineer. Some are better than others, but yeah, I mean, it's just finding those mistakes that cost time and money in the field and catching them before anything gets built is really helpful.
I think, that, and the second thing that really, when I walk the shop, is the amount of waste reduction. That was huge. And you guys are optimizing, material. You guys look at it, you basically had a 55-gallon bucket of cutoffs for your stud. I think you guys were buying zip sheets in 10-foot lengths or something like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, basically optimizing, the material so you're not going through as much waste. But let's go back to, you had this Plymouth job that came up, foundation wasn't in the ground, and you simply just wanted to make sure that your guys weren't getting laid off. And I think that's, Mike, you and I talk through text a lot, usually after a Tuesday. Usually after a Monday podcast.
After Johnny panel hating fest.
But and
I would be texting you too, Johnny. I just don't have your number.
We'll get it to you after the podcast. But I think that's what I really want to focus on, is that, Mike, it was really about the people. And that, obviously you got into panelization because you realized that there was an opportunity to kind of build this stuff before the foundation went in the ground. So at that time, you guys are on site, you have the space for layout, you're pre-building these walls and pre-cutting things, and basically getting that project as far along as you can prior to the foundation going into the ground. Was it at that point where you guys looked at each other and said, why don't we build this in a shop? We'd have more control, or how did that evolve?
I'd say it took some time, because it's not like you have a bunch of money to throw at a place, and you've never experimented with renting a spot that needs that much space. So that seems very daunting, but Jesus, I think I had like a tent in my yard where I pre-cut and pre-lay out, or I do it in my basement and then pass it up through the little window, through the side, just to get ahead. And, it just came to the point of how nice would it be to have a spot indoors to be able to do this. And that was really the original idea, was like, get ahead.
Yep.
Get ahead on jobs. And that's kind of it. And
you're just scared of the cold.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I am. A little breeze on my neck, and I'm done for the day. I'm surprised my hood's not on now.
When you guys first started out, was there, did you feel as though there was only a certain type of job or a certain level of customization that you could hit doing this, or were you confident that you'd be able to do almost any job that you could stick frame?
No, we definitely didn't have that confidence. I'll let you talk, Tony.
No, go ahead. It's just something that progressed over time. more we learned about it, the more we experimented, the more we did. You know,
Yeah,
it was definitely a learning curve.
Once the wheels start turning a little bit, and then you realize what, you know, the next possibility could be, or what you might want to try. It's like, let's try it, you know, and that's kind of how it went.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this starts as, hey, we can get ahead, or there's bad weather, we have a day worth of work here, and then realizing that there's so many efficiencies with that. I feel like it's just like any other job where if you're that immersed in the pre-planning of it that you can build that entire job on paper or through models, why wouldn't you be able to build that somewhere and then erect it at that point? Like, as long as you dig into that enough up front, there's no reason why you really shouldn't be able to. I mean, obviously there's logistical reasons where it's like, all right, the amount of time it would take to pre-plan this, it's almost easier just to do it in the field. But I think for most stuff, it's like, if you're that deep into the design of that, there's not really reasons why you shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the evolution of that was really, we'd snap and draw everything out. Anything we did, if it was a trim detail, if it was, you know, a roof section, or, you know, that's the way we've always done it. And like, there's computer software that also does the same thing, and you don't have to, you know, snap everything out. It's a lot easier. You don't get yelled at for having black chalk all over your hands at night, and your face and your eyes and your forehead and whatever else you touch that day.
I'd like to think that it's very similar, Nick, where you guys both, Nick and John, might know, you go into an old house and somebody wants a set of built-ins and everything's off and it's not square. And when you first start out, you're like, I have to build this in place just because there's too many things and variations to account for. And then the more you do it, you realize that there's certain benchmarks that you can take to get all of your accurate measurements and build that off-site and install it on-site with no issues. It's just having the confidence to go about that in the first place, because you're like, I really don't want to build this wrong and then get it on site and have to rebuild it, because that's going to suck a lot.
It's happened, but that's it's something you'll never forget, you know. And you search for the reasons why, and you fix those errors. It's like, Nick, you're pre-building that staircase. It's like, I'd be scared shitless. I don't know how you feel, but it's like to have.
I'm with you.
Because I mean, we're talking framing versus finish, where it's like we always want to give ourselves a little bit of play. You know, tight isn't always great, because tights, you know, then you bring out sledgehammers and everything else to try and get it to fit. Finish work, it's like a finished staircase.
I've seen finished guys with sledgehammers before.
That
cabinet's gonna get in there. Grab a block, grab a 2x4. I don't want to beat it up.
The finesser.
Yeah, it just needs a little oomph, you know. It'll fit. I know I measured it right.
I think, you know, so as this evolves, you obviously get your space and things like that. But one thing, Mike, that you talk about a lot is, you know, the talent pool. And I think that's a frustrating, you know, we talk about framers in general, how, you know, the pool is like swinging in the wrong direction, meaning that it's being flooded with guys that, you know, aren't as dedicated to it. It's much more of a speed versus accuracy thing. And I think, you know, and I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, but I think that's what you guys are trying to combat, John, from your role, is by, you know, getting ahead on the accuracy through modeling, and then allowing it to be simplified in the field, which I think is a trigger for John here, and that's what we've talked about before, is that simplifying the in the field craftsmanship, if we want to call it that. Well, we do want to call it that. Is that accurate? Is that really how you're trying to make up for the lack of skill?
Yeah, to a point. I mean, obviously, you still need guys that are somewhat skilled. But we've developed a process for setting panels, and a lot of the guys learn it pretty quickly. It's not as difficult as actually building a wall and laying out a wall. As we try different things, we get feedback from the guys in the field. How did this go together? What was the problems that you had? Did something miss a line? And that allows me to adjust my designs accordingly. Just getting feedback, constant feedback from everybody, and just not building a product and saying, yeah, I know what I'm doing. This is fine and the way it is. We're constantly looking to improve how we do things, and we always listen to what the guys in the field have to say, and our customers too.
Nick, you know what's funny is that when I flip through the IG handle, and that's how I know you guys, is I don't actually think when I see their stuff that there's less skilled people there. I look at it as a bunch of people that have been able to take some really unique drawings and designs and streamline that entire process so that way they can do more work. Instead of saying no, again, guys, you can jump in here. I feel like in my end, it's like they've come down to such a streamlined thing that they could have guys in the shop be actually on site framing something else, putting something together, have the next job going in the shop where they've got their systems down to a point where I wouldn't question the actual skill that's there. It's just straight efficiencies.
I'm looking up Cape Cod on Instagram, and I don't think Cape Cod is you.
I wonder if that's taken.
I wonder. But no, but I think these guys are the exception, Nick. Because a lot of times when I see stuff flying up in the air, it's again, even on our stuff, even when we try new framers, it's I just Freudian slip is like I get a bunch of laborers. I get one framer that knows what's going on, that knows how to cut stuff, and I get 4 laborers, but they call them like carpenters and apprentices, and it's like, no, like these guys aren't doing anything. They're just ants walking around. And again, that's the panelization has value. When they're putting up those affordable housing complexes in Dorchester, you just see these panels. You see them on the highway. There's tons of them. And it's like the problem is there when I look at those pictures, it's like that's just going up. And there's someone saying we need to get this entire truck off up in the air and on that deck by the end of the day. That's not what I see with these guys. So
see, that's funny because you were all talk before they got on here in person,
Yeah,
I knew he was talking shit.
Yeah, he's backtracking right now.
I was thinking about this all day.
He knows he's on a slippery slope.
No, I think there's I thought about this. So my thought process on this, because I knew I was going to get some jabs, was, there's and Nick, car guy, there's the that Porsche I posted the other day.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful Porsche. It's from like 1964 or whatever. They made a couple years of it. And you can buy the original Porsche. There's only a handful of them that have been restored. And they're like upwards of $200,000. Mm-hmm. But yet I can go to Barrett-Jackson and get a kit that is $40,000. Mm-hmm. So like that's where I get hung up, is that when it's a kit and it's a model, it is valued less than the one that's handcrafted and done where you're kind of hammering out those fenders, even though you could make a jig and have them pressed. Mm-hmm. That's where I find there's a gray area. And I mean, I know you guys are biased because you're doing it, but I also look at your page and it's like, there's Patrick Ahern designs in there. There's stuff that there is no compromise to design. That you're just making it streamlined for yourselves and the overall process, because New England sucks, and that the weather, if you kind of run with it, then you're going to get snowed in if you're not planning for it. And you're able to kind of accomplish that with having the shop and create the details. But I feel like there's still super skilled guys on the site, but you're just moving on to the next one quicker.
There's just less and less skilled guys out there. And I mean, through our history and everybody that's worked with us, it's they have some kind of a drug issue eventually. They go off, start their own eventually. They, are taken by somebody else that offers more money. And it's like, over time, that amount of time you invest in someone and the time you put in to teach and everything else, you're kind of like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this again and again? And I mean, I agree with let's try and get people interested in the trades, but it's only going to get worse. If we're all being honest, it's only going to get worse. I mean, the kids coming up and everything else, it's like, unless they can frame a house through their cell phone, I don't see it happening.
Do you think that you have a better chance to be successful panelizing and having less skilled labor on the install end than you would be if everything was stick framed on site? Or do you think it doesn't matter?
Easily. It's like I'll never go back to stick framing ever.
So are you guys
only for years and I loved it. I loved learning that, and I understand guys need to learn that and want to learn that. I mean, the guys still do the same thing in the shop. Yeah. We just don't do it on the job. But
so are you guys you guys aren't supplying anything. You're installing all your work that you're doing in the shop?
Everything's contracted through us for, I'd say, I don't know, at least 60, 70%, something like that.
Well, all of
yeah, it's like we also have full frame contract with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would probably say around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do.
You guys are building stuff that's going out and somebody else is putting it together at that point?
Yes.
Do you have to send somebody to basically manage that process, or do you feel confident in whoever you're sending that out to?
No, we really don't send it to anybody. I mean, some of the commercial projects, Johnny, I guess we have, but you've met a lot of great framers that you still ship panels to.
Yeah, I mean, if a builder comes to us and says he wants to use panels and his framer has never done it, I'll go out and spend a day with him and say, hey, this is how we do it. This is, I don't tell him how to do it.
Yeah.
I just tell him how we do it, and he can work out his own processes from there. But usually, I mean, any framer that has any idea what he's doing, and he sees the panel layouts that I give him and sees the stack of walls, he knows how to put up walls. You know how to lay walls on a floor and stand them up. You're just eliminating one tiny step. So, I mean, guys put them up in no time. And, I've met with a lot of guys in the field, and they're like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to bend over all day building walls.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love panel day. Panel days.
I mean, just
fun day.
To advocate for what John's saying and where I feel he's coming from is that I still think it's very important for people, even if they're just on site when the panels are going in and up, to understand how to stick frame that house, because I think there's principles and there's certain principles that go into that you have to understand how that framing was designed and comes together for it to still be a successful install. It's like you can't just have somebody who has no idea what they're doing, because I don't think that you're going to get the overall product that you want.
I agree with that.
I understand that, but I'm past that point. It's like, I've gone through all that shit. And it's honestly one less headache that I don't have to deal with, because, the houses that we're doing, there's much more complicated, areas that are nice to be able to focus on and tune into, knowing that you don't have the proper labor behind you. And rather than watching someone build a wall and fuck up a window RO and, put a header where, there's so many things that go wrong watching guys build throughout the years that I'm done with it. And it's less of a headache. It's just like, it helps things flow better. You don't need as many guys on the job.
So Mike,
it just helps you concentrate on, other things
where you need to.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think let's I want to look at this in two different ways here. So short term, that makes a lot of sense. Like for you, like you've dealt with the headaches, you're moved on. But to relate back to John's comment about the Porsche, right? It's like if everyone just starts buying kit cars, those kit cars, and they're $40,000, you're essentially eliminating the fact that anyone at some point no one will know how to actually shape that fender, because it would just become this, no, it's pressed in a sheet metal press. And I think, John, that's kind of where you've kind of alluded to it in the past, is that that's fine. Like, technology is going to innovate our industry. Panelization is going to become more relevant. Robots are going to eventually build more homes than they already are with these concrete machines, right? All of these things are very real, but how do we, protect the fact that preserve the fact, like Tyler said, you still need that one guy that has to understand and respect how that wall goes together. Okay, well, that guy retires, and everyone under him has only put panels together for their entire career. And I think that's where, I guess it's a two-part. Is it necessary for guys to actually understand how to, again, the Porsche, form a sheet metal fender, or is that just going to die? And is that, and I think that's where, John, correct me if I'm wrong, like that's where you have the biggest quote-unquote issue with.
Yeah, I mean, I think then the design, like we used to always joke about, is like the Boston Public Library is never getting designed again, because the architects that are designing it know the sub pool's not there for it to be done, and the budgets aren't there either. So they'll create this massive glass structure because the curtain wall is the easiest assembly system to put together. You can put as many labor as you want, and it's a bunch of screws and gaskets, and literally anyone can do it. A high school kid, college kid, someone that's been in the union for 20 years. So I guess my worry is, like, we talk to people that don't really know about panelization but love it, and it's like the Pulte's and that stuff. And then I talk to you guys, which is like the opposite end of the spectrum. You guys get it. You're skilled people. You guys, someone can work with you and get the means and methods. It'll just rub off.
But I also feel like that's basically developed because you guys came from the framing background. So like you're integrating all of those details because you've screwed up every single detail before. And so when you go into design, you know what to look for. But like at some point, there's going to be people who haven't stick framed a house and haven't screwed up every single detail before, and they don't even necessarily know what to look out for. And I think that's like the tough part. And there's no right or wrong. It's the same thing, John. It's like a tile detail. All of the tile systems are different now. But I think that it's very important to understand the original systems, why they were in place, what they do for tile setting, rather than just be like, hey, you know what, this is all I've ever installed. This is because I think that there's principles and guidelines that are like the foundation for tile setting or framing, that it's very important to have them. You guys have them, and you have a successful panelization company because of that. But I don't know if that'd be the case if somebody didn't have your background and just like started a company like that.
Do you guys don't panelize everything? Like, I'm looking through your IG, and when do you guys pull back and go, all right, we got to stick frame this, or like the roof line?
When there's not enough time, I'd say.
So everything I'm seeing everything I'm seeing is panelized.
Yes. Where do we stop?
Yeah.
Is what you're wondering? I wouldn't. If I could stay in my little side shop and pre-make an entire house on top of the panels and have the entire thing figured out, that'd be my dream.
Is there a design that prevents you from doing that right now?
I don't think so.
We do have customers in the shop that come through Cape Cod Panel that we also advise and say, this part shouldn't be panelized. You're gonna have to feel to bring that. So
yeah,
it's only part of the process.
So there are restrictions. I mean, because you have to think about shipping as well. So, and Johnny runs into a lot of issues because there's so much steel in these houses now that there's areas where Johnny's come up with a good system to do it as far as chopping them up and splitting them, but they can't be, or sending frame packages with all the parts and, everything ready and labeled for them to put together. But there's definitely spot. What would you say is like the one spot that you just you didn't feel comfortable shipping out or designing, or?
I don't think I can think of anything off the top of my head. There's certain things that it doesn't seem like it's worth the time to prefab it because you're not gaining anything. And there's certain other things like knee walls under a roof, which we haven't had a lot of. I don't think we had a lot of luck with prefabbing those. So we do those in the field. There's certain things that I look at it and go, it doesn't make sense to run that through the shop. It's for whatever reason it should be framed in the field.
Or it could be a matter of like touching something too many times. You know what I mean? If you're touching it at the shop and then you're loading it onto a truck and then taking it off, where it's like if you were on the job and touched that one time and put it in, it's not worth so many hands touching one piece of material.
So like the roof system, because we've talked about this too, is, I think we called it the Lego set. Like, how could we do this in a manner that everything was panelized? The floor system came in, you drop the floor panels, you connect them, walls, roof system, everything. But some of these complicated roofs, I think I'm understanding is that you guys are pre-cutting those. You're not assembling that roof system on a trailer, are you? And standing and leaning them in as, basically front and back pitch?
We do it and it's really on the jobs that I'm running is really the only time we've tried. We've sent out pre-cut rafters, but that's something that's like, we don't want to risk that and send that to somebody if it's, unless we perfected it.
Yeah. So
it's like, I'll always take that risk and go for it. And we've done it on Hourihan houses where we've, pre-cut, pre-built, pre-sheet.
Pre-built the whole roof. It was all gambrel and
blue skin, the entire roof. You're just doing the seams at that point. So, I mean, it's just something we haven't come up with and perfected, but it's something we would love to do. But also at the same time, shipping limits that.
Yeah, shipping is, especially if the job's 5 minutes from the shop, it's one thing, but if it's an hour away, that's a lot of truckloads shipping those roof sections, and you're really shipping a lot of air.
Yeah, a lot of dead space.
So it just, from a cost perspective, you got to look at that situation too. Roofs are typically 2x10, 2x12 rafters, and that's a lot of space for one section as opposed to a 2x4 or 2x6 wall.
I mean, I'm thinking like in my head trying to work, and I guess, you guys have modeling and all of that, but trying to work out, overhang details and varying pitches on roofs and whether it's soffit or rake and fascia details. Like, are you guys able to work through all of that on more complicated builds that you potentially think you could prefab something like that? Or is that always going to be something that you're going to want to stick frame and sort out on site?
Johnny kills that shit. I'm telling you. You're talking to like the MIT of framing right here. Like, he is
just making
like
sure
the
trim lines and things like that, or you're talking about prefabbing.
I mean, even like like varying pitches with overhangs and making sure that you have equal overhangs where you have two different pitches coming in. Like, I feel like that's stuff that even if you've sorted it out on paper, sometimes it's easier to tweak in the field. Or do you think you guys have capability of doing that?
No, I do that all the time.
And if it means drawing out the complete trim detail to get to that point, to make sure the dead heights are right and the overhangs are correct. And I mean, there's I can't even tell you like houses where there's no same detail on any soffit, on any rake, on, you know, and
because that to me is like what I would feel would make a really talented framer. Like somebody who can now take like this trim mock-up or this fascia soffit, rake return, and sort out the framing based on that finished trim detail. And you guys are taking, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you guys are taking all of that away, and now it's just like you don't even have to sort all of that out.
Because imagine how pissed you would be when you end up with, I mean, truss companies have done this to us a million times where, you know, there's trusses on a house, we put them up, and there's different pitches. And you're like, well, I guess we have a 24-inch overhang in this section.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like
those are all the critical
details. Line up, you're looking at a 24-inch overhang.
And that's the stuff that I feel like, you know, makes a really good framer, somebody who understands all of that, and they're few and far between. And like they're gonna be fewer and further between, which like it's not a bad thing. I think if you're still executing those details where there's people who don't understand that, but like that's for me what it takes to be a framer. And it's not just, you know, building the stud walls and all that. Like you said, that's the easy stuff. I just think it is good for these guys and these girls who are framing to still understand how those roof systems are coming together to create all of those details. And that's what I hope isn't lost, because I think that not that they necessarily need to do that, but like if they go to do it, they at least know what's right. They know how to get there. So if something comes in and it's screwed up, they're not just nailing it up and running with it. And then you guys are coming in after the fact, or somebody's coming in after the fact and be like, well, you know, we have an 18-inch overhang on this side and a 12 on this side because there's two different pitches.
Well, I think, Tyler, the point is to have enough knowledge that you can predict where the issue is.
Yeah, and you know when it's coming together right,
a lot of
or when it's
framers right
not.
now don't. And that's where like I freak out, where when they're starting to frame those, I need to be around because those guys will just run. Like we had a situation where we had a connection roof and it was calling a 6-pitch, and they were just framing away, and they hadn't cut the window opening for the, you know, where it hit the main house. And I was like, where does that ridge fall as they're putting it in? I'm like, because we didn't cut the window open and it's above the sill. I'm like, we need to manipulate that connecting roof to be a 5-pitch so it falls underneath the sill. But those some bitches are just going to keep going. And it's like, I get it. That's how they make money. So yeah, just order. I already ordered the windows because they're like 10 weeks out. But it's like how when there is this kind of neglect in the industry for not wanting to know the means and methods, who's going to pick up the slack? We can't digitally come up with every house that gets built. So like, what are the other options? You guys are the exception to the rule. And for people coming in this business, there's a lot of GCs that have come up where they've had no framing experience. I've got PMs that are just like that they can't diagnose it. They can't see it coming. Like, all right, hey, like I have a kid that's a super. He's a sophomore in college. And I'm like, hey, before they get to stand that up, when they start moving around and the ants start moving that direction, call me. Just call me. Let me know to go there. I don't want you to stop anything, but I just want to be there. And it's like, otherwise this stuff just gets built and then the conversation goes, that's how it was drawn. Yep. And I get that, but who pays to manipulate it? Yeah, but that's the worst part, is that if I'm burning capital and money at this stage that should be caught with experience, and how we air quote experience is where Nick and I get in fights all the time, then what's the deal? You can pre-plan as much as you want. It's all done in drawings, but knowing when to be there and knowing when to pull away. Like when they're framing all the walls, when they flame the deck, I check square, and I'm an asshole. I Sharpie it out, and I do my squares on the corners, so that way these guys know that I'm checking stuff. And I'm the guy on the roof, so that way these little moments happen where I don't need to be around for the walls going up, because that's simple. But when it gets to the intricate stuff, you know, how that roof line is going to hit the other roof line, and it isn't that clear because we didn't pay for the higher end drawings, I need to compensate, otherwise I'll get a mediocre product.
And I just want to make sure that it's clear that like walls are simple to build when someone does all the work for you. Same thing as on a job. You know, once the foreman or whoever lays it out and all the parts are there and it's correct, then it's easy to put together. Then you're just basically babysitting and making sure someone doesn't fuck something up, and which would constantly happen.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like when we joke about like a roof. When I was a roofer, there's a money section. Like that's going to be a money roof, but there's no penetrations. It's square, no chimney, no nothing. When I'm talking about, I'm not trying to take anything away from setting walls. People can still screw that up, but it's like that certain areas, man. It's just money. Lay your stuff out and go. Yeah, and there's really not a lot of complications. It's when you get the post downs and cripple. It's all those things that happen where I'm looking at it going, I know you got the ridge in, but you got to put in the point load all the way down, the 6x6. Like, and I don't. And it's the same as like my framers right now. Almost every frame company sets their entire deck without putting the lallies in, and then they start loading that deck without the lallies. And again, you guys are framing every day, so I don't know how you do it, but I'm like, I'm not loading that deck without the lallies in. I don't want you to jack that sumbitch back up and then let it set. So I have the guys, I go, hey, I have my apprentice or whatever you want to call him, super. I go, I want string lines on top of the bottom plates. And I want to be able to come in tomorrow morning and slide my 2x wherever I want across the floor. Because I want to verify that everything's dead nuts before you guys start loading this thing up.
That was always an excuse not to put in the lallies right away. You have to let it settle a little bit first.
Right? But it's even little things when they start putting LVLs in the beam pockets and they're putting the squash blocks in and they're putting them horizontally. So then it is going to compress.
Yeah.
Instead of taking that PSL and cutting it vertically, they're just sliding in shims almost. And you're like, dude, that's going to settle. But like those are little moments that I'm going to teach this kid who's a sophomore. I'm like, this is why we don't do that. And then when we build the whole thing and then you load that whole building up, just imagine the weight that's there. All that lumber that was dropped, how many 18-wheelers came, and that's now being squashed by those 6 2x6s.
Every addition I crawl underneath, I find the old asbestos siding that they ripped off that they use for shims. It's like under the beam. Gotta just grab something to put under here.
Stuff that in there.
I was under one the other day where they completely missed like the beam pocket with the CMU, and it's like just catching on the edge of it. And I'm like, how the hell did this even get through inspection like this? Yeah, I guess it's still standing.
And the cool thing is, if I'm laying out or snapping a floor, and I'll snap beams and everything above that's going on, for the next story going up. And if I see what is an obvious post of like a bearing load, and I'm like, I wonder if John screwed this up. And I'm like, nope, it was me. Every time, it's like it's like you just trust John. Trust John. It's just how good he is. It's like
I make mistakes sometimes.
It's funny though, because so much of framing, it's like getting it out. It's fast moving. There's such a tangible result at the end of every day, but it's like what Johnny, you're calling him, is doing is basically nobody's necessarily building these things before the framers show up. It's like, hey, we're going to show up and then the foreman's going to snap things out and tell them where everything needs to be, go over roof pitch. But you basically have somebody who's going through all of that beforehand, and then they can have their super. So it's like it's getting checked more than once. And it's probably getting checked way more than it normally would, because let's be honest, not many framers other than whoever's pricing that job out is walking through how to build that house or that addition until they show up that day.
Yeah, no, I remember when I was in the field, I would get a set of plans on a Tuesday night and say, oh, here's the job you're starting tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And, you got to look through those plans and try to figure that out and try to keep 8 guys busy at once. And
hope the plans don't get wet. Lose all your notes.
So, yeah, it definitely has the advantages of being ahead of the game.
What do you think that, compared to, say when you guys started or when you guys were traditionally framing to now, what do you think has been the single biggest benefit from panelizing?
I would say reduction of labor.
Reduction of labor?
Yeah, in the field.
Yeah, I mean, Joel was going over numbers today, and since 2018, it was like, what was it, 60% less in total man hours.
33,000 hours.
Yeah, we went from 33 down to 16 or 14.
And that's in the field, or is that in the field in the shop? Because
that's in the field. That's the amount of time we've spent on framing, and our total gross has gone up, I think, 60% or something crazy.
And we're talking about in the field, though, right?
Talking about in the field, just framing, our framing contracts, including panelization, obviously being a part of that.
But is that including so we talk about reduction in man hours and manpower. What about the guys in the shop? Are you producing, because obviously you'd be building walls on site, but if you're building them in the shop, are you actually using less people to build them in the shop?
Yes. Because that cost is also accrued in. I don't get free panels. I write a check to Cape Cod Panel because it's two separate companies. So that's all included into the cost of doing business.
Right. So the reduction in manpower in the shop, is that because they have more time because they're not on site and having to slam up walls as fast as possible, or are they operating?
It's just systems. The guys, all have a role and they know what they're doing, and they do a great job at it, and they take pride in it. And Joel was telling me the other day, the foreman flipped out on two guys because there was something wrong, and they had the thing stacked in the yard, and Johnny flipped out and had him go out there and tear the whole wall apart and, do it again and do it right. And don't try and sneak something through. So there's, multiple checkpoints, and two of the major checkpoints were, they tried to let it slide by, and that's how good these guys are in here, is they check and they take pride.
So, but speaking specifically to in the shop, what's, I guess, does it just come down to controlled environment? Why not build these panels? Why not set up on site and build these panels beside the foundation as the foundation's being set? Is it really just come down to the fact that you're in a controlled environment? Is it as simple as that?
It's more than that, I think. Definitely controlled environment helps, but the automated saw for cutting all our parts with the printer that labels everything, and the processes we have for sorting, and just the systems that we've worked out over the years have just made it more and more efficient. And every man that's in the shop has a job that he needs to do, and they concentrate on that. And it's not just one task. The guys switch it up a little bit, but everybody knows every process pretty much for every workstation. So it's just made things a lot more efficient.
So with all your efficiency, is that just higher profit for you guys, or are you guys saying, hey, we can build a house, we can frame a house for less money?
No, we don't change our pricing.
So it's the same thing. It's basically in hopes to create a higher profit margin for you guys by being more efficient, less material waste.
Yeah, and it's also beneficial to our clients too, I think. It's like we discussed, it's another set of eyes on the project. I go through every document. A builder will send me a window order, and I'll notice if a window should have tempered glass or not, and I'll point that out to them, and it's it saves them money later on.
So when you guys looked at this and kind of transitioning from what you were doing to what you are doing, so obviously you're going to have to continually invest in equipment, but was it more that you looked at it as like, hey, per job per month we can bring in this much more, or was there like a break even point for your investment in all of these systems?
I wish. Mike, I want to let you answer that.
I'll keep putting money into it. I mean, I just like what I do, and I know Johnny loves it. Joel loves it. It's like I'd be willing to go broke again to take another step. You know, it's.
I guess because you're essentially reducing your labor, and I would imagine that that's going to continue as you streamline the process and get more experienced with it. But a lot of that money, that's not money in your pocket. That's got to be going into equipment.
Robots, I like to call them, yes.
Yeah. So, like, is it like, hey, we're still kind of making the same amount of money, or maybe we're making a little bit more, we're making a little bit less, or, hey, in 10 years, this is going to be paid off, and then it's all profit at that point. And obviously, you have to continually reinvest in technology, but.
I think the best way to look at it is, with Cape Cod Panel and ML Riley being two separate companies, the revenue of ML Riley has skyrocketed because of Cape Cod Panel.
Because you're able to do more work.
Not because I'm here, but it's like it has enabled. I mean, look at the past 2 weeks with the weather, and we just started a job, and I feel like we shoveled for 2 weeks. But in those 2 weeks, all the walls are built in the shop. They're ready to, and that'll help speed up the process and help us get to the next job that we have scheduled, because it's super busy out there, and there's not enough guys. So it's
well, with respect to the install, right? So, are you still battling? You're reduced the amount of men in the field for ML Riley. We talk about that. You don't need as many guys in the field, but are you still battling that, when you do have inclement weather or, a slowdown or something holding you up, are you able to pivot faster now because so much is being done off site?
Hey, what's up?
What do you mean by pivot faster?
What's up?
I guess, like, there's always going to be times where I assume there's always going to be a time where you're going to run into something that you can't get a job started, like weather, right?
Yeah.
So are those guys? What are you doing with those guys if you can't work?
Yeah, that's where that original creativity comes in, and you look ahead, and that's where you say, hey, send the roof down to the shop, and we're going to pre-cut everything. We're going to keep the guys busy because there's
your guys with ML Riley will come back to the shop and start pre-cutting and prepping for a job.
Yeah,
I got you. That's what I was getting at. Is you're able to pivot those guys, being obviously involved with the two entities, but being able to pivot those guys and get creative and start pre-cutting a roof.
Yeah, and even have them jump on the line and help, frame panels with the guys in the shop. Whatever it takes just to keep everything busy.
It's funny. Ryan Sweener from Sweener Builders, they're starting a new project, and they had a similar situation that you talked about at Plymouth, is that the foundation wasn't ready. Yep. So he was sitting in his shop, and he pre-cut all the studs for his walls. He basically, I think he pre-cut everything. So when they got on site, the foundation was there, piers in the ground, and they were ready to roll. Everything was pre-cut, and it's like you said, it's utilizing that time creatively, as though, hey, weather isn't working to our advantage. Let's pivot and do what we can in the sense of pre-planning or pre-cutting or preparing for when we are able to go back to work, not just shutting down.
And I think that's always been the coolest part about it to me, is it forces you to really think ahead and get creative to the point where it's like certain things will click as you're, like Ryan pre-cutting the studs. He's like, well, I could probably also pre-cut this.
Right.
And, so that kind of evolves into, I think I'm going to try this, because I'm pretty sure this could work if I, snap it out and, I could keep the guys busy doing this, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the other part of it that we really haven't talked about is the safety, right? It's, you're fabricating, say, dormers on the ground, and then you're craning them up and attaching them to the house, and you're done. You're not standing on the roof line or working around it. You're able to work at a much safer elevation, just in general.
Yeah, and that's actually something OSHA agrees with very strongly too, because I think we had a sour past employee or something called OSHA, so they came down to the shop, and I said, this is the way to do it. They saw the dormers sitting outside and the walls and, whatever else we had out there at the time. But
the comment was everyone should be panelizing.
Yeah. That was their comment was everybody should be panelizing. And I understand that there is a one of a kind versus Johnny.
Sorry, I'm just giving the
biting
stink eye to everybody.
His tongue is like bleeding right now.
It's like, who is that inspector?
And Johnny, I agree with you, because it's like all you hear are horror stories about panels and everything. It's just like that's why it bummed me out when you were talking so down about them, because I'm like, I thought you would have been the first one to be like, let me try some of those, and hearing you talk so sour about them, I was like,
well,
I didn't get it.
Let's
I was
be
like,
honest.
how does Johnny not understand this? Like,
honestly,
he's very
the
efficient
panels
at what
I
he
can
does.
afford
Like,
will
how
be the
does he not
shitty
get
ones,
this?
not you guys. Like, there's a difference.
I love the people that don't.
Well, that's a thing. Like, Mike, we've talked about pricing. We've talked about doing projects together, and the price point, there really is. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. There's no premium to panelizing.
Not with us, at least. No.
And again, stop me if I'm saying this incorrectly, but my understanding is that if, let's just use $100,000 number as, hey, that's how much it's going to cost to frame this house. You're basically just moving. If you guys come in and you're $20,000 for panels, you're essentially shifting $20,000 of that $100,000 to you guys to panelize it, and then the framer gets the remaining $80,000 to put it up. Yep. So at the end of the day, the delta's there's no difference. It
just all depends on the budget, Nick. I mean,
of course,
like the house I'm framing right now, I bet you these guys would be $100,000 for the system. Mm-hmm. I'm at 67, and that's me walking it back from 98 because COVID and all that stuff. It's just how it shook out. So, yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, as we grow with our projects, I would love to grow into that. You always say, if I had the right budget, I would use these certain people, whether it's plumbers, HVAC, whatever it is. I just don't think my products are there yet. That's what I meant by like the panels I can afford. I have no idea what it's going to be when I get it. Like, it's basically like I could tear it apart. And I spent like, I've talked to a lot of people that I've seen. I probably shouldn't use a name. We might need to touch that up, Nick.
Yep, I'm on it.
You got the time. But I think that people are stick building stuff that isn't actually accurate. And what you guys do and what you guys see in Nick and Tyler, and probably am backtracking because these guys are the exception. It's not like you're compromising in any way possible. That's why when I asked about the roof, I was like, damn. I mean, someone gave me flack the other day. It was like Danny Wang. And he's like, hey, do you stick frame every piece of your builds? I'm like, no. I mean, if there's a simple roof line, I will truss it. Hands down. Like the one we're doing in Carlisle, 2 out of the 6 roofs are trusses. But the other ones are all complicated enough that it's just more efficient for me to have it stick framed. But I'm willing to give up a little bit when I know there's no sacrifice. When I have to I look over the heel heights. What John's doing, I'm doing a lot of those things behind the scenes. I'm checking all the windows for, tempered. I'm doing all that before we order anything and before anything hits the ground. I'm approving all that stuff. So when I know when it hits, dude, just let those suckers fly. I know where I have to be. But I think my worry is that, to Tyler's point, as we die off, who's going to be there for that? Or do they just take that other panelization company that we named earlier that we had to bleep out and just run with it, and they go, this is what we have to deal with now. This is the environment we're in. And they blame that for what they have to do. Like, that's the sacrifice to quality.
I mean, I also feel like the people who are using other said panelization company, whether it's panelized or stick built, it's still going to be the same generic crap.
Yeah.
You know? I think that that's more important than anything else, like preserving those details and not watering that down, because at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of it comes down to your capacity as a framer. If you can do the same things in a shop that you can do in the field, there's not that much of a difference. You know, it's still, price point is still the same. Like, you guys would probably be a more expensive framer for these custom builds, whether you're doing it with panelization or stick framing at all. It doesn't.
And that's not the case. Maybe I didn't make myself clear, but the frames do not cost more.
Sorry, I just read an email real quick, and
The frames
someone just gave me another house, and I was like, yes. You guys caught it real time.
I thought you were saying yes to Mike disagreeing with Tyler.
No, I missed it. I just read it. I was like, oh, finally. I was waiting for that call. Still got it.
Share with the class, John.
Yeah, share, John. You go.
No, it was just like a past client recommended. Say, hey, we recommended you to this client. Great design, great location, and I'm like, you fall in love with that kind of build, like the right lot that's not super tiny, and then the great architect that works, and you're like, and then my past client's like, yeah, we referred you. Wait for that phone call, and I've been waiting for 4 months, and I'm like, God, man,
who's framing it?
You're like,
but I'm like, what did I do wrong? And then my interior designer that we get a lot of work from, she's like, so I talked to these clients, they're gonna work with you, and I'm like, I keep hearing this, but yet I get nothing. And then they just hit me up and they're like, yeah, we live at this house, we're building this, the design's done, we're just waiting on structurals, we'd love to work with you, early spring start. And I'm like, God, it's about time. Like 4 months you've been anticipating that call when everything works out.
I wish the last line was, and we want to panelize all of it.
Hey, honestly, but that's the thing, guys. It's like, if I had the ability where I knew it worked, and again, like where I get hung up, and I should do a video on this, is like even our Carlisle build, we've had the drawings done for like a year, okay? And then the client goes, hey, she saw this inspo image of, like, we have a triple window in the back that looks out to the pond. We have a single window on the right for the master bath, okay? Let me paint that picture, you know? And the tub was going to go underneath the triple. It was always her look. So we did the drawings, done. Now we put the foundation in. She goes, sends me this photo, and it's like, it's a lime wash entire bathroom. Now the shower is like at the end, no windows there, and she wants an 8x8 window in front of the tub. And I'm like in my head, I'm like, I could just, we actually changed the frame as they were doing it. And it's like, I know I can do it with you guys, but I lose value in if I have that entire thing set where, like, if we had sent this off to you guys 2 months prior to frame, right? If I'm guessing right now on timeline, it has to go to you guys maybe 2 months ahead of time. How far away? How much?
Just in time.
Okay, so like that happens, and then I then have it panelized. I then feel like in my head I have to say no to that, or I have to go, hey, here's a change order for that move. Where in reality right now, it's like, this is the perfect time, because while the guys are here, it's a sawzall in an hour. And that move's happened, where I feel like if I invested in a panelization system, that luxury of making these little manipulations, because not that the client hasn't approved it, hasn't thought it out, but their thought process is still evolving. And then now that we're getting to the point where we're settling, then they tee it up. Like, I don't want to be. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy that panelizes and then goes and then chops up the panels. Like, there's something that seems wrong.
That's
We built that with care.
That seems like a rare situation. I mean, obviously we get change orders. Typically not for windows, because I typically will not go by an architect's window schedule on the plan. I want to see an as ordered window schedule.
Same.
If the glass is on order,
love you.
You could have told the client, hey, you want to change this window, and now I want to put, a bigger window here. You already spent X amount of dollars on windows, so that's.
Well, I'm also I preach about ordering stuff early. I also have a really hard time ordering windows before walls go up.
Yeah.
For that exact reason, because I suck at this. Like,
No.
I really, people don't understand the prints.
Change it as you're going, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough time that before, like, that first floor deck goes up, like, for this house, it's really sprawling. So we made, I want to say, at least 7 changes to windows. And that's like, if we had ordered them, that would have probably been $4,000 with the windows. But I just stalled long enough that I had the window order done. We framed them to the ROs same as you, John. I think the drawings, and whoever listens to this is architects, the drawings are suggestions. So whatever goes into the prints, it's a suggestion to what our final product is going to be. So yeah, I have all the window orders done. I give the guys the drawings, and I print out all the window orders. The guys, Riverhead gives it to us without pricing. So that way they have ROs, everything's detailed, and we don't do like 001. I make it dummy proof, and I put like, it's 001 mudroom. Like, so that way you know exactly where those windows are going. And it makes it a little easier to make sure. But like we're tossing windows, like she's like, I don't like this. Can we slide this bathroom over? And I don't want to be that guy that goes, yeah, it's going to be like $2,000.
Yeah, but then you'd have windows for your whole house. Think about it.
Yeah.
Dude, they never work. I've tried.
They may not match, but you'll have windows.
Yeah, I'll have that house. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Drive by, it's like, that's that house. I saw that on IG. That's that house.
Those look just like our windows, just different sizes.
Some are black.
Oh, man.
I guess that's the other part of this, is that it's an organic process. And maybe that's the romantic part.
When those changes are usually happening, are those walls already up?
Oh, yeah. Because then they're walking that house for the first time in reality on the deck, and they're seeing what they're going to see in real life. And that's where the whole, like, let me take this window that's looking at this red house, and let's swap it so it's on the side of the bedroom. And those little moves can happen because I feel like I'm still being efficient, because that guy's $69,000. Even if I throw him an extra $5,000 for my changes, I'm still way under what I want to say the commitment level would be for you guys. And that's not just you guys in general, but I feel like I should have my shit thought out, whether it's 3D renderings or whatever it is. That way I'm minimizing a lot of that.
Well, that's what I was.
It's stick framing or panelizing. When those walls are up and they're seeing it, there's zero difference.
Yeah, but then,
because every homeowner, it seems like most every homeowner has to walk through the house, and then they're like, these doors should be taller. These doors aren't tall enough, or whatever the change may be, or like you said, master changes, master bath, once they see the space, but the walls are already up, they're just stick frame.
But I feel like I'm throwing out away all the efficiencies that I gained with you guys. Say that again? So
you're actually behind at that point, because they would have been up quicker.
No, I know, but I feel like then, like I'm having a hard time with all the efficiency that I put into you guys. I'm throwing it out. Where when I have guys stick framing it, they don't have the sheathing up yet. They have certain loose ends that, like, it's wide open, where I feel like it's still not 100%. So I can make that change. Yeah, but they're
also, I mean, I guess to their defense, like, they're also a month ahead. Like, you've gained a month on your schedule because it's, the walls are up. So the efficiency, I mean, you're 4 weeks ahead. So if they make, what's that?
The findings or changes or they're able to walk that space quicker.
Right.
I understand go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, John, I hear you on that. And it's funny that you said the 3D rendering thing, because I felt I was going to bring it up and figured you'd hate that. But it's like,
I still do.
But because
dude, every client's an absentee client. Even if they're laser focused on the design, they still will go through it and go, I had no idea. And it's like, yo, we spent $4,000 on renderings. I walked you through this. I took you to Seven Tide, and we looked at the elevations in it, and you're telling me you still didn't understand the package I put together?
So then why aren't you charging them for that at that point? Like, for me, it's like you should just be charging. You went through all of this.
2 guys that build lots of houses.
No, but now, like, they're making
don't
changes.
Pick on us.
But you just throw jabs, and it's like,
I'm not jabbing.
No, it's just that you're doing stuff for free. Like if you went through and you spent the money on the renderings, you took them to 7-tide, you did everything within your power.
But my experience tells me it's a waste of money.
But what happened?
But my experience is telling me that doing all that is still a waste of money, because an absentee client isn't someone that just doesn't hit the job sites or doesn't pay attention. They can be right there. It's like being home with your kids and getting that text message from a shitty client, and your kids are still telling you a story and telling you to watch this YouTube thing, and you're like, you had no idea what you just saw because your mind's racing a different direction.
Then don't do any of that and tell your customers we're going to save the money on this, and in your experience, there's changes once you walk it, and we'll address those changes once you walk it, but you're saving how much money on renderings, and you're saving how much time on 7-tide and everything else. I just don't feel like you should be making those changes and eating those costs.
I guess that's what I was getting at, John. It's not a jab. It's, what is the reason? Like, why does it fall on you? Do you feel as though you're responsible to allow them to make that change without charging them?
Yeah.
Why? Your framer's charging you for it.
No, he's not.
You said you'd throw him an extra $5,000.
If he asked for it. Just being honest, a lot of times there's a bundle of changes they're going to make. I'm not doing anything drastic, but we catch it early enough that they can throw laborers at it. We try and keep it to under 6 changes.
I just feel like that's something that if you're already at that point of the build, I mean, maybe that's something where it's like, hey, everything's together. You're at this point, like, to make a change at this point this is what it's going to cost. And I don't think you're a bad guy for that.
But at the same time, it's like, if you've never built something and you put your entire life savings into this process, and then you have this regret about where that window's placed, and then you're being told that this mistake's also going to cost you money at that stage, that you might live with that regret for whether it's $2,000 or $4,000, that we could have caught it and we could have negotiated that even sooner. That I feel like it's the same as, like, let's take out a framing real quick, which is pointless because we have framers on the podcast. But let's say plaster gets done. Why not have the painter walk through at the plaster stage and circle any imperfections that they want fixed before they take accountability for the whole plaster job at the house? Because I also don't want that change order. So I feel like we had this framer for 2 years now, and the one before that we had for 7. Like, they just know I'm going to make, so let's just paint the whole picture. Okay. I do some things to make it efficient where I use, I don't know if you guys know Structural Wood Systems, Jeff Gray. He's out of Bellingham. He basically takes all my drawings and does my structurals, which is the joists, the LVLs, point loads, all that, and takes whatever engineering's there and throws it out the window. And then we go with that. And everything's basically pre-labeled for stairs, for beams, beam 6 for headers, whatever it is. They're not cut the length, but you just got to clean them up. That's same with the joist. So there is very little, cutoffs, Nick. It's not like pre-cut. You still got to kind of chop off 6 inches here for all the joists. And then everything's laid out where he takes the drawings and then lays them over the prints, so that way you know where toilets are laid out. All that stuff's accounted for. So basically, when I get these drops, I'm feeding framers. I'm just feeding them. Like, hey, here you go. Like what they did last house, it took them 3.5 weeks. We'll do in a week and a half. That's what we used to always brag about. But it's about feeding them with the information and the drawings and the lumber and not missing a beat. So for me, I'm making them more money by being efficient with what I do. So that way, if I want to make a couple tweaks, they know that they're still on the upside of it. If it becomes, like I say, that 6 number, because it's like, if I change a window here and I do this and I do that, I'm also solving everything because all these beams are pre-labeled. They're just cruising. And I get a little bit of gimme there. If it's beyond that and we start doing some crazy changes, then yeah, you know what? Hey, get me a number on that. But I usually have to ask them for it. So I think that's the whole overall picture for a frame for me. That makes sense.
It does.
So we get the same plans, the EWPs and all that from, and they do the same thing, rough cut everything. And then Johnny takes those plans, the EWPs, and fixes those too, for the floor systems, lighting layouts, HVAC, whatever may be involved with the information that we have. And we still use the EWPs, like you get from the yard. But, and that's more so for the labeling of material that you do, that you'll actually go there, label everything. We'll use that as a reference, but still at the same point, what Johnny has is, above and beyond what is given to us by the lumberyard. And Johnny also gives the lumberyard all the information to create the EWP to make sure the material takeoff is right. It's a lot of.
I feel like I should flip the question back to you. How is it a wash? Like, you have to be a premium.
It really becomes a wash. I mean, every job, all the jobs that I price, I don't even think about panels. It's priced as if I'm stick framing the entire thing. And the panel price is a part of it. I mean, you're taking a part away from the frame in the labor that would have to be done, but also you're relieving a lot of stress. You're relieving a lot of labor that would have been had, and it's going to be done correctly.
I mean, you're probably relieving a lot of rework as well.
You have a smaller crew working this, right?
Yeah.
You have a original contract. You're tied to.
Hi, Joe. Oh, sorry. Delivery.
I was listening to the smaller crew.
Yeah, Joel should really come over here.
Joe, let's go, man.
Really
on screen.
Joel's eating churros from Domino's right now.
Sorry, I was listening. I want you to know it was great to listen to you all, your comments and your pros and cons. It's been a real pleasure. It really has. You guys are fun. You make this whole process worthwhile.
Yeah, you're being very diplomatic here.
That's all. Now, which one of you doesn't like him? No, Johnny. I want to talk.
No, Johnny. I know where Johnny's coming from.
So look, you have somewhat of a smaller labor force. All right. You have a fixed contract that you're dealing with. So you say to yourself, this is my frame number. This is the number of guys I have. All right. I have to take a look at what my hourly rate is. All right. And you just do some simple math and that's how many hours I have on this job to get, if I want to make $40 an hour, that's my cost, $50 an hour, 60, whatever it is. You have so many set hours. When you have guys that are standing around, they're burning those hours. So you're going to find that on any construction site. We try to minimize that too, because there is always something that's going to be the next. So when we get ahead and there's a change order, we're happy to take change orders, all right? But there's a name for it. It's called a change order. This is our original contract. This is what we said we were going to do. This is the amount, all right? If you want us to do something else, we'll be happy to do it, but we're going to charge you for it. And you don't feel bad about that, because you can get developers or you can get GCs that all of a sudden they have 100 hours in change orders, all right? And you're saying, this is our rate. We have to make this to make money. They want to argue with you about that. And all of a sudden, you've lost money because, all right, we'll do the change order for 55 instead of 65 because that's what you do. Everyone seems happy, but when you go back and do the numbers, you've lost money, or you haven't made as much as you could have. I mean, money's just part of it. It's also the efficiency, getting the project built. We have a generation of people that want it now. I want the house now, Good panelization can lend to that satisfaction, right? Not junk. Junk doesn't work, So there's a lot of reasons. If you have 4 men starting a house, your workers' comp's going to go down, all right? So you have workers' comp, your safety issues, your insurance. So panelizing is more than just these walls going up. There's the design in front of it, there's the efficiency, there's a customer satisfaction. You do a couple of these and you do them well, all of a sudden we have architects calling us saying, we'd like to talk to you about this for our client, so that it grows, but it grows organically. You can't just say, here's our panels, use them. It just makes sense.
And the hope with change orders too, Johnny, when we do this is we don't want change orders.
No.
And the only way we want to charge for change orders is if the builder that hired us is getting paid for them. It's like, that's when we'll slide and say, it's on us, don't worry, because we know what you guys do and what you're up against. So it's if we're charging for something stupid and ridiculous and just trying to drain money, it's like nobody feels good about that.
No.
There's no long-term relationship there.
It's like the stock. Yeah. It's like the stock market. Bears make money, bulls make money, and pigs get slaughtered. All right. We know of framers that have lost jobs because their reputation is, I'm going to go in with this, and then I'm going to change order you to death. All right.
And that's their attitude.
And that's their attitude. And it's like, well, that's okay. Ours is, this is our price. This is what we said we're going to do, and we're going to do it. And that's the price. And we'll do it probably better, smarter, faster. And
I'm with you. I just feel like I think I have to do a better job at my job.
Do you think that you're afraid, John, that you're paying more for this system than you're kind of hacking into it and charging more on top of that?
I feel like I do value efficiency at such a high premium that I would hate to compromise it at that point. So I guess I get hung up on what should I do to educate the client so they know every piece of the result. I feel like the frame goes, when you're stick framing it, I have enough time that, like, literally when walls start going up, I walk them through it. And that's because it gives me the time for them to digest that space. So before they get to the second floor, if I want to tweak something, they're digesting it and they're letting me know. But if I do this system, I have to do that rendering. I have to trust that rendering. I have to change my process of them walking around and seeing it organically and seeing the views and them taking hold on their own terms.
One of the things, you raise an excellent point. And one of the things that we do as a panel company, all right, is we engage the people that are going to be our customers. That includes, and there is always an invitation. We say, GC, you come in, bring your architect and bring your clients. Have them come in, kick the tires, see the process that we're doing, get a three-dimensional rendering of your entire home. This is it. You want, honest to God, the wives walk over to John, they start saying, well, if I wanted to change this, now's the time, absolutely. Or now all the way up until when? Well, until we build the panels, which is just in time. So you really have a lot of time. We try to set the expectations as well as show them the efficiency. And that has helped. Those customers they love us. They're like, you guys are awesome. Yeah, and it's not that we're trying to showboat or anything like that. We really want to have it be a good build because panels have a shitty reputation. My God, The other part of that is, and John, I really liked your comments about the nature of framing and those that will not be there in the future. I face that in a couple of ways. Two things come to mind. One is the last manufacturer to manufacture buggy whips, he lasted because he was the best, all right? But we don't see a lot of buggy whips. The other side,
figure out what a buggy whip is.
Yeah, the other side to that is I have
Googling buggy whip.
Same.
I have
it's for a horse buggy, right?
Yeah, for a horse buggy.
Yeah.
There is no more horse and carriages.
Of course, Nick knew what a buggy whip was.
Yeah, he's got one in his closet.
I got one
in the bedroom.
That's right, with the trapeze. That's what that works. I have a pole. You like trapeze? Okay, that's fine.
Look at Joel opening up. I like this.
The other part of that, though, think about it. I have grandchildren, and one of the things that I think about is my grandchildren may never learn to drive a car. 15 years from now? I mean, do you know? I don't know. So we're not trying to change the world. We're just trying to find that niche that says we do panels, but we do it custom. We bring you, you're involved in this, you can be as involved as you want, or you can back off. Sometimes it's just the architect and the GC.
So Joel, you just brought up a great point of the whole cars, and I think what you meant by that was just adopting what technology is going to hold for us, not trying to change it, not buck the system.
Remember Advantech conversation?
Yeah.
Up sip, you know?
True, but I think the car part and driving was key, is that we had Jonathan Ward on here, and he's like, I think, 3 kids out of his son's graduating class learned how to get their license. But there's also a part of me that, you know, I hate this disposable world we live in. And if we just go with that, hey, roll with the way the times are giving us, no, that's one of the reasons why I bought an F100. I want my son to turn that key in his left hand, understand the idle of that truck, wait for it to warm up. It has a personality. It has a soul, and you need to understand it, not just push a button and go. Like, in this world of go, how do we get people to slow down? And it's the same reason, again, I'm not preaching and I'm not right here, so everyone take their own thing. It's like, I have my kids watch certain movies because I'm like, I want them to be like me. I want them to have that perspective and that love for certain things that will be lost. And that's where it comes down to, is that I love this industry for all those little things that make them special, that you guys have, that you guys were able to take that amazing knowledge and simplify where it could be simplified, so that way the real time could be put into certain parts of the build. But you guys are the exception, and there's so many people out there that won't learn this because there's no handbook. I mean, there's the Fine Home Building guides and all that, which I love and people should look into. But besides that, a lot of people are just flying by the seat of their pants.
Right.
So how do we teach that perspective where it's not just plug and play for the guys that can't afford you guys?
What we do it one job at a time. And I tell people, it's not about this job. It's about the one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that. You know, it's about relationships in some ways. And I don't want to sound cliche about that, but we have someone that comes in who's a framer, and they've never done this before. You know, they shuffle their feet and ask, and so, you know, and they're nibbling around the edges. And what they really want to know, or what they really want to say is, I've never done this. How do I do this? And we offer that, all right? So we offer that bit of training and advice. We also offer it to the general contractors. Why? Because the first time the GC will work with us, you know, we say to them, in our experience, get your subs in line. Because the subs think, this is a frame. Okay, I got 6 weeks, I got 8 weeks before you're going to need me. And all of a sudden, the GC's saying, guys, the house is up. It's ready to go. So we've tried to give some insight to them as well. It's something that we want to teach people. And like any change, you can only do it really organically and locally. And we do it one at a time, you know. And if we're successful, that's great. If we screw up, we'll try to figure out where it is that we screwed up and not do it again, you know. But repeatable processes, all right, are efficient, and they can make you money. Burning hours,
one touches.
Burning hours is something that I can't stand, because $100,000 contract, my hourly rate for me and you and everybody should know what your number is, right? This is my number, okay? It's $50 an hour. I divide 50 into that, and I go, that's the amount of hours I have to make that number. If I go less than that, which is the goal, I might even make a little bit more. My customer's going to be happy, and the homeowner's going to be happy, and we're going to do it all through quality. So it's not a bad thing, you know. It's just trying to figure out how to do it. You know, you take the first step, and John's brilliant, no question about that. But he will also say to someone, this is not an area that we should panelize. You know, I mean, he's a framer at heart. he knows, he's not going to lead people down that path because that's our product. It says Cape Cod Panel on it,
Yeah, I wish there was more of that.
John Hourihan, you also, you like...
I just got yelled at.
No, but you like
Marty's
that.
My middle name, too.
The way that the two Johns here, I feel like I can't call him Johnny. I'm not that close to him. I think that you like the flow and the pace at frame stage and being able to walk that. That's been your system. I also think that a lot of your, and like going to Seven Tides and all of that stuff, a lot of your like design sets and drawing sets aren't that detailed because you like to sort that out as you go. You like to be able to
Seven
kind of
Tide was a
manipulate.
huge resource for me.
Yeah, but you like to be able to manipulate and change that, and like that's what you offer, and you can bring value to your customers that they're not locked into something. But I also think, say you start going this route on some builds, like maybe it's half the amount of changes that you're normally making. And the goal would be fewer and far. Like, you're not going to basically absolve every change that's ever going to happen, but like having more information in place up front is just something that you're not used to, and that's been kind of your bread and butter. But it's not saying that you wouldn't capitalize on something like that or increase your efficiency or the way that you see things through in the manner in which you see them right now, and the process and those steps that you take, that you wouldn't be able to get used to something like this. And then when you're meeting with customers, it's the same thing. Like, hey, I want you to visualize this space because this is going to be when you walk down that hall and enter that room, this is going to be your focal point. Is this where you want that window? Where I think that you'll be able to kind of foresee all of that stuff and then basically articulate that to the customers and see that maybe on a computer screen and not necessarily in real time as the build's happening. I think it's just a change.
I think the nuts and bolts of what has to happen is I would do this and I'd have to add a line item for changes.
Yeah.
And if you don't use them, then it rolls into somewhere else. But it has to be, I think...
allowance.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the key to in order to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, you just budget for it up front, and then it's not like you're slamming them with something afterwards.
But I'm also not penalizing them for making a change that they might regret not doing.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool, guys. All right, the drawings are heading your way.
For this new build that you just got on this podcast.
I would absolutely, honestly, with a ton of respect, I would absolutely try it. And that's a big thing for me, to be able to give up that control where it's like stick framed and we're kind of organically going through. Because there's a lot of tweaks I make. They're not Patrick Ahern level drawings, but I try and get to that level. Like, I am trying to bring everyone up and squeeze, as I put it with all my guys. We're trying to squeeze the absolute best out of everybody on site. Whether it's the framers, it's the roofers, it's whoever sets the windows, the siders.
How is it working for you?
Fucking awesome, dude. Look at me. Look at his hair.
No, I honestly mean that, because we like to go, green to gold, but not often do we get that. You seem really committed to that,
Well, the struggle is that...
Is it working?
Johnny's one of that. You have to see this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like he loves it. Like, he's someone that really gives a shit.
He was reminding me of you, just the way you were talking.
Well, the struggle is how do you delegate? When it's all in your head and you have, and again, this is where I get hung up in it, is that when I think about delegating to my guys that have less experience, I then think about the rest of the industry the same way. Is that if it's all in my head and I can't delegate this because it's not on the prints, and I can't assume, like, someone's having a bad day and I can't tell you how many times I walk into a house because to Tyler's point, I've bid this job. In any given time, by the time I get a contract, I have built that house probably 7 times in my head. Like, I know exactly where the flaws are. I know where the trouble points are. I can walk onto a job and not even by glance, I'll catch the problem. Like, by glance. It's not like I had to pull out a tape, and I'm not bragging. It's just when you know it in your head, you just assume what the rest of the space is going to look like. Then you know what that's wrong. 100% wrong. Like I did it the other day. I'm like, that's not a 32 pitch. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, just while I'm doing something else, check that. And it was a 28. And it's like, just because you know that the soffit isn't supposed to be 2 feet deep. Like it's supposed to be this size, and you just know those sizes. And I think, how do I keep what I'm doing, but how do I do less of it? To answer your question is, how's it working? It's a lot of time and effort on my end to create a product that I can put my name behind. And that's what I understand an ownership is in this business. But I also want to simplify it enough that the people in my company will still be able to create the same product without as much work.
Do you think it would be helpful to your less experienced guys to be able to sit down and see like a 3D rendering of the entire frame?
Yeah, but that's the same thing, is that I'll give guys drawings. I'll give them months ahead of time. I am now assuming that they're going to digest it on their own time. And guess what? They fucking won't.
Right.
That no one does their homework. Yeah. And then I assume that, and then they walk in and they go, I'm doing this. It's like, dude, that's supposed to be 3'6". Does that feel like 3'6"? Open your elbows. Like, come on.
Oh no, but I ran out of gas, so I was late, and I had to.
Yeah, it's something like I got a flat tire. I thought about that. My wife was pissed at me. She gave me the wrong look when I left. Like,
we all get that. What we've been able to do, because that's so frustrating. Someone with your talent, someone with Mike's talent, all of you, the talent that you have, it's so frustrating because you can't impart that on someone, especially someone who's looking at this project as another 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we have to be smarter than that. And it's like, okay, well, if that's who we're working with, then what can we do to, and I'm going to use a word, this is a strong word, but what can we do to exploit whatever talent that they show up with every day to our benefit? All right. And sometimes it's not picking up lumber, cutting it, and banging it together. You know, that's all I'm saying. We, as businessmen, we have to adapt to the market. You know, that's some of what we do. That was my buggy whip example. We have to always try, and that takes a lot of work.
No, I mean, I love the process and the systems that you guys have come up with, and I would absolutely be willing to adopt it. But I think it comes with an evolution on my part.
A sense of comfort, I think, on your part.
Would say that again?
I think it's a sense of comfort on your part. And yeah, you would have to give up a little bit of what you enjoy, but you might find new enjoyment.
Yeah, there's also insight that says
through
I still need
doing
to do
it, trying it.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I won't dispute that. But I'm in.
Insight.
Hell yeah, Johnny's new job goes to us.
No.
He just got that.
We did it, guys.
It's not down the Cape though. So does that work?
When we bring in a new framing crew just to work on maybe a small project, we start them off with a small project, something that they can't get hurt. Again, it's our product. It's John's good effort. You know, that work product that he does as well. So we don't want to set people up for failure either. It's like,
you're only as good as your last build. As everyone's like, well, I got all this jobs. It's like, yeah, how is your last one?
Right.
And that's the big thing.
The best news is when you finish 2 builds and then you have 2 builders that say, yeah, those 2 builds were ours, and here's 3 more, and here's 3 more, and here's 3 more. Because the architects and the customers, like, the architects don't have to go out in the field all the time. You know, they've said no.
My question to you guys is like architects, most houses that are done by architects is what, the top 2% in the industry? Like, how do we as a community instill those means and methods for everyone else? Or are we going to just say, I was on the phone with somebody the other day, let's just say Danny Wang. Is it Wang? And yeah. He goes, craftsmanship's dead. Because I was like, yo, why don't you use your following of 200,000 people and do it for educational purposes? And he's like, it's dead. I'm not going to put anything behind it. And then he then went on to tell me that it's going to be AI in robots that over the next 5 to 10 years that will be doing tile setting and all that stuff instead. So how do we how do we kind of pass this knowledge on that this group has in that room? Because like the knowledge that I see between the three of you guys is like, we need to do less videos of the drones and more videos of how you run through that software and pick up these flaws, because that's something that I think a young builder could adopt in just not even panelize it, but just to review that rendering to understand how that process works if it's a model and they do that. Like, how do we grow this? How do we expand this beyond, the six of us?
80% of our new clients, especially if they're framers coming in looking for panels, are your age or younger. There's a certain level and a certain age. Look, I'm 62, but there's a certain level that get it. All right. Remember when the PC came out? It was like, this is going to change the world. And I remember, it was in the 80s. It got plopped on your desk. All this shit got moved. And you go, here you go. Be efficient. And they're like, wow, you moved my picture of my dog and my kids and my pencil box, and then the whole ergonomic industry emerged. Comfortable chairs, wrist fit, we continue to evolve in all of this stuff, so we can't hang on to the past to the detriment of us having a future. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's someone out there that knows DOS 3.0 and can do, launch a space shuttle.
I know, but I think on the other side of it is that, we've been to a lot of industry shows, and I feel like JLC and those other shows have blown up with a lot of products that are there to minimize the amount of craft that has to go into it. And that's what I think it's saturating the market. That, yeah, I think what you're saying makes complete sense. But how do we get that to everybody is my point. The videos of booming in that roof, like the whole trusses and everything's in and sheathed, and you're like, yeah, I could watch this all day. But how do we get more people that's not, you guys can only effectively do what, 20 products a year? Like, how do we get to 200 people that we're affecting with the means and methods that you guys are doing now?
Well, part of management, you get planning, staffing, organized, directing, controlling. Then you have innovation and representation. So to try to innovate takes time, and to represent yourself out in the public, perhaps through Habitat Through Humanity, where we donate labor and panels and do things like that. It's a collective, but it only works if there's a set number of people that want to do it. You know what I mean? It's like creating a product and not have a market for it. It's like, this is a great product, yeah, but nobody wants to buy it. So.
But I think the question.
Like-minded people tend to really create bigger things. You take Wozniak and Gates and Jobs and all those people, you put them together, and it's like, look what happened. So you have to use.
Did you just watch the Bill Gates movie?
Like-minded.
I feel like I just watched the Bill Gates movie.
I watched Bill Gates on 60 Minutes.
Oh.
Maybe that was it.
I just recently watched the movie. This is all like making sense to me right now, and I'm like, all right, I'm following. Let's
at least get a job of yours and make it the best that we can. Won't pull any punches, and you'll go through the process, and you can either say, you've given me something to think about, or screw you guys, I'm blocking your number on my sofa. I mean, Can
you do that?
Okay.
No, I guess my question is, you said, without the detriment of growth, why not look at the future of technology without the detriment of growth? My worry is that without sacrificing to, a nod at the past, I feel like there's not enough knowledge going into how things are made. Like we joked about, Kevin O'Connor and when sheathing went on in a 45 degree for shear and cutting in your braces, there is an entire massive, I wouldn't even say a group anymore. It's like generations that have no idea what we're talking about. And they just think that they can hold plywood up, 10-foot sheets on the vertical and nail it off every 3 inches, and that will be shear. And that I guess my point is that I'm worried that in the next 10 years, when the next correction happens and there's a whole mess of massive, craftsmen that just retire, and they haven't passed on what they have because they're not savvy with social media or YouTube or whatever it is, what happens to this industry? Because the impact you guys make to your market is phenomenal, but the overall industry itself, what happens?
I think that comes down to the emphasis on good design.
Yeah, but you and I both know that good design is few and far between.
I know, but I just feel like in order to impact more than just our local markets and our customers, that it has, like, the emphasis needs to be put on design on a larger scale. Because I think that so many things, people either think that they don't need designers. There's no nobody's putting any emphasis on design, or they're creating designs that are easy to build because of the lack of skilled labor. Where I think, if we upheld designs or correct details or integrated them into our builds, whether it's interior, exterior, I think that then forces more people to understand the design and how it gets built, where it's not just like, hey, I can go pull something off the shelf and get this detail. Like, no, you can't. You have to figure that out.
Education is always a wonderful way to spread the word. But I mean, I think you're speaking of what framing is in more of an art form. And I appreciate that. And I think that bespoken custom market, it can be analogous to what we're doing. There are custom tailors, right? Number one, where are they coming from? Do they even make them anymore, these custom tailors? And number two, who's their client? You could have the greatest custom tailor in the world making it, but if there's no one to buy the goods, So we are in a special market, right? Number one, we're on the Cape, and number two, we deal with some pretty amazing houses, So it's just that little niche that we're trying to carve out. I don't know of any other custom framing panel company around, and that's what we do.
I think John's point of, like, I don't think you should get rid of the drone shots by any means, but I think, like,
yeah, no, I didn't.
And I know you were getting at a point, but it's like being able to capture what you guys do, like you say, Joel, is like education is, an awesome way to promote, but being able to capture what you do, like I said, when I got to visit your shop and walk in, I see John in the computer, and he's walking me through this house. He spent, I forget, you spend less than 40 hours, right, modeling, or is it less than, like, modeling a standard house? How long does it take you to?
I mean, it anywhere from 4 hours to 25, maybe.
Okay, so I mean, we're talking.
He builds you for 40.
We're talking 3 days max. Yeah. Anywhere from a day to 3 days.
That'd be 4 days max.
So, looking at that, like, in seeing that process, but in doing that, you're doing so many other things. You're setting up your shop for success. You're setting up the field for success and install, but you're also giving the opportunity, which it sounds like from our conversation people don't utilize, but giving the opportunity for the other trades to look at this and make sure and coordinate with HVAC, coordinate with plumbing. John, like what you do with structural wood systems, like making sure like joists are in the right spot for toilets, all of that. It's like you're doing this live and you're being able to manipulate this in 3 dimensions, so you're seeing the hits, anything that is an impact, or a roof line that goes through a room the wrong way, or a rafter that has a bigger overhang than it should. All of that stuff is being done in one contained model that has the ability to set up so many other areas for success. And I think that's what like you said, panelization has this negative connotation to it, but understanding what goes into it to set it up for actual success, I think would be a really important part from, I'm talking like market, like how you could market to the masses, right? Walking people through that process, I think would set that level of attraction, at a higher level.
You raise a good point, because we really have three markets like everybody. We have just the general public, the customer, the homeowner GC. Then we have, architects, obviously, and then general contractors and also framers. So we also have to be able to speak to different people about what their concerns are, what their needs are, what their motivation is. It's something that's doable, but like I said, we try to do it one build at a time.
Nick, to your point, I think it's great, but I do feel like you might put too much weight into that model that people actually pay attention to. Like,
too much weight. Good.
Too much value in it. I mean, I feel like, my HVAC guy, I might send it to him and I go, hey, review this. The odds of him actually reviewing that or the guy that's going to install, I feel like I love the romanticness of it.
But
this is great. It's going to solve a lot of things. The reality is that it won't unless there's someone like myself or you or someone else that sees the value in that and then implements it.
100%. And that's where I relate back to when I was in commercial, is there was one guy coordinating. That he was the project coordinator, like the MEP coordination, but it was one guy doing steel, and then they would coordinate with the precast team, and then they would go to the mechanical team. But it was one central location. So yes, in residential, it's simplified way down to a point where it is you. But I think,
but beyond that, it's just this. Like, how many times when you got out of college and you were like, you got a set of drawings and like, where's the HVAC design? And they'd be like, yeah, you do that on the fly. Or like, hey, where's the stacks go? And they're like, you figure that out. And I was that naive guy in the beginning, and then I'm like, all right, I need to learn that. I need to learn where all this goes, so that way the guy on site doesn't just start throwing it in.
Right.
So my worry is that how do you instill that where, like, people pay attention? Like, if you talk to your HVAC guy and your plumber, they're so busy. They don't even get invoices out on time, and that's for us to give them money. But yet you think that they're going to review and look at something that it might have value.
I think
they don't have time.
I think it's a long-term play. I think it's, they're not going to be sold on it, especially the first time. But if it's slowly implemented and slowly kind of brought into the process in which you build or someone builds, and it just becomes part of that process, and over time it's a little bit more of their time and a little bit more of their time, to a point where it's like, I see a lot of success in this. I'm not doing as much rework. I'm spending less time on site. I'm getting more projects done in a week. I think that's it. It's a slow adaptation to it, but the only way to do that is to have that one central person that's kind of setting that up and starting. And it starts, really it starts with the structural, the frame. And, it
starts with you.
And the general contractor.
Because after that, you could hire somebody that's a PM that fucking doesn't pay attention. And then all the work that these guys put in goes to naught because the foundation was shit when it's not square and it doesn't make any sense. So all the stuff that you set up with these guys, and you're like, this is going to be easy and you can coast. Everyone coasts. Mm-hmm. No one drives hard up that hill to enjoy that coast. They just accept the coast even when it's like a 2% pitch. And that's the biggest problem I have, is that, I get all that, but it's people, you have to stay on them. Someone has to be there to put the throttle down.
There's no
at night making more people like that,
But how do we do it? How do we get people to understand the importance of it? That's my point, is that this is great to this little bundle of people that are right here. How do we expand it?
You have to, I think, delineate if you're going to be talking about the people like Mikey, Johnny, and me, all right? Or you're talking about the general crew, because the general crew, look, out in the shop, we have a core group, and it took 2.5 years to get that core group. We went from 12 guys in that shop to 5, and we brought numbers up, all right? So we set expectations, but you have to have a core team. I think that's part of it. There are always going to be the transients that are coming in. I'm a framer, I need a body. We've all experienced that. But the two or three people, I should say, you know, the ones that you can turn your back on and know that you're going to do it, they're few and far between. And if you do get them, you have to take care of them too.
So that almost proves my point that this industry is full of these exceptions.
But full of luck.
But how do you guys put this on paper? Let's just throw this out there. Money aside, and not trying to, you know, create these little franchises, but how do you put this system on paper that then can be multiplied to other areas of the U.S. That way it can have legs, and you guys could not only just have an impact to your market and the builders and the architects and the clients that you touch now, but it could be bigger than that, where if you had time, maybe it's an hour a week for the next 6 months, and you put together a program where that, hey, someone could buy into this hypothetically, so that way you're not wasting your time. But I would love to see this level. Like, how do you duplicate? How do you clone Johnny?
Yeah,
exactly. How do you clone you?
So you would have to clone Johnny a million times over to make that happen.
Let's do it.
Oh, that's
we've talked about franchising, John. Because that's basically what you're saying. You're talking about franchising.
Well, we've also.
I want to spread the wealth a little bit, so that way it's not just in our, like, everyone gives a shit about New England and how we care about architecture more than most.
That's first on this, all right? Because one of the things
Johnny already said we're working for him.
One of the things we thought about, John, is that you could help us develop, and we could implement a Cape Cod Panel certification program. I am certified in doing Cape Cod panels because I've spent time with the designer. I know my trade. I'm not someone off the street going, I can do IKEA stuff, so I can do this, you know? I mean, it's, you know, so, you know, what does it take to be certified? Well, you have to, you know, have a certain level of experience perhaps. And, you know, you have to have a certain level of aptitude and what have you. All you need is one, right? But then you can say, I'm certified in doing this kind of residential panel. No, we don't do the other stuff, because everywhere else in the country, they're just spitting out houses. MyTech, are you familiar with MyTech? Yes. The design software that John uses.
No.
They surprised us and said, well, we really sell hardware. And MyTech's a great company. You know, we sell hardware to panel companies to make trusses. And the more hardware you buy from us, the lower your software maintenance costs will be annually. And we're like, we appreciate that, but that's not our business model. And they said, well, we appreciate that, but your software license is going up 500%. All right. So if you just use round numbers, let's say it was going to make $800 or whatever, you know, now it's $5,000 a month. After some negotiation and doing what we did, they said to us, we get it. We get what you're doing, and we want to come out and see what you're doing. We're going to leave the software it is, because we also know that there is a big demand in walls. And I think a lot of mass producing wall companies are also, or should be thinking about what we do, but it takes a different level, you know? So yeah.
My thing is, what if you went back to that software company,
you know,
and said, hey, I want it for free, but I'm creating a system that people can use this all over the U.S.
Sure.
Like, I think there's young people that could listen to this and go, I want to do that to my market. And how would they be able to do that? And they'd have to kind of go through the ropes. And yes, we all are on this podcast and we want to make money for our families and our industry and not our industry, but our market and our company. Like today, I told my guy, I go, hey, let's just really hammer down the next 6 months and let's make some real good money on these products. And I want to offset what you can't cover on your addition you're going to do. That's my commitment to you. Let's do this. But it's the same thing as, like, that's me making money as an individual in a company. But we do this podcast when we burn our own personal time to kind of, how do we influence that? Instead of bitching about it, how do we influence the industry? And I think what you guys have, and this is crazy coming from me, is something that's very unique, and that is what we need in the market of shit. And if it could be put into a system where someone could buy into the components of it in the system where they don't have to take the next 10 years, which you'd have to put a nice price tag on it, take 10 years to figure it out and get burnt and stumble and not make it happen. This could be what really increases these markets and sprout up instead of just going, hey, give me the same old generic spec or Toll Brothers or Pulte, because that's all I know. And these great architects and these great systems come into place that save enough time in the ways you can save, so that way they can spend more money on details and real architecture that will last forever and not be disposable.
I just think people have to find value in this type of design, this type of building, and it works right now where you guys are located because people are willing to pay for that. I think it comes down to the battle that we all face, where it's like there's going to be somebody who's going to offer something that's less money, that's not as nice, and it just like fits the budget. And I think that's like a much bigger issue. I think that this would be an amazing opportunity and asset to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, like there's only so many people who are willing to pay for that level of design, that level of craftsmanship, and I don't know how much of a place there is for that in the massive construction market. I think that so much of our country is not.
Let's just put this in Utah right now. Let's just transplant this system in Utah. You tell me it doesn't take off?
It's already.
Yeah. It's like you guys would crush it there. You do it in California, again, murder it, just slaying it. And like how about you go to Florida? I mean, there's certain areas that your market will have this product, this system will kill.
Yeah, if we're going to be poor, let's be somewhere warm, right? You know?
Yeah, I'd go to Utah in a heartbeat.
What you guys order for dinner anyway? Something good?
We got them some wings for them, you know.
Oh.
It's been a long day. But
with the COVID and all.
Yeah, right. With the COVID, yeah.
Hey, I got to hit the road, guys. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. It was
John,
nice.
Take care.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Love you, Johnny boy.
I think John.
For the record, it takes like an hour to get from their shop to the main road. It's the longest driveway in the entire world.
Go down here.
Area 51.
Yeah. I was like, this is.
Started talking about Cape Cod. He's like, I drove down the creepiest road.
Yeah. I was like,
I think that the battle that they face is the same that we all face, as far as like the market and what's out there and what people want. And it's tough. It's tough to scale. I mean, it's definitely doable, and there's a lot of people doing that, but it is tough to scale that level of detail and kind of what you're looking to execute. It's much easier to scale a business that's kind of hitting that middle of the road or lower. It just makes more sense.
We had someone from Vancouver. It was Western Canada. And called us and just said, I'm thinking about doing this up here. And I just went. And we had a wonderful conversation. You know, we talked about just a lot of things. And it wasn't like we've perfected this, you know, by no means. We have a soft white underbelly, and that's John, you know. We have one of John, we have one of Mike. You know, so there are things that the business is always thinking about. But we were happy to share whatever we could with this person, you know. And it was a couple of things was like, well, I didn't think of it that way, yeah, you know. So even when you get into the panel business, look, you have, you know, do you ship? All right, we're not in the shipping business. We don't want to be in the shipping business. So we have to have a relationship with several, if not all, of the lumber yards, because we want them to drop the material and pick the panel up and deliver it. And so there has to be value added in all of what we're talking about, you know, and that is something to be able to say, you know, when the material drops, you know, it's going to get built and it's going to get dropped when you need it, where you need it. And, you know, if you have a postage stamp lot, no, we're not going to overwhelm everybody. You get the first floor walls, they go up. And then in the afternoon will be the second floor walls, because that's how fast they go up, John. All right, but
I'm with you, baby. I drop every 2 days.
Yeah. So
I feed my guys as fast as I can.
So it's all of that, you know. And I was saying to the guys in the crew, you know what they do. It doesn't matter if it's Cape Cod or what. So, but we really are in a unique position. You know, there's a lot of work in front of us in an area like Cape Cod. We're not in Lawrence, Kansas, putting up ranches when we can. So
it's pole barns out there.
Right. So we have an opportunity to continue to try to innovate, because Mike sees things in the field and he brings them into the shop, and we're going, yeah, let's figure out how we can do this. You know, for example, cameras in the shop that film the walls going through, so that we can do a time lapse of sheathing and be able to say, okay, we'll handle the sheathing inspection through an engineer, all right? But as those panels go out and they're still horizontal, we're going to blue skin them. So when the panels go up, it's like, so, you know, we've cut into some things, you know, and we try that, and, you know, so we can date stamp things. It's, you keep throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
If you're not evolving, you just get bored and honestly, you lose any passion for what you're doing if you're not progressing.
That's what we talk about, you know.
Yeah, so I think Utah's a good spot to progress and to evolve.
Well, I think, you know what, John, Joel, you said something a couple minutes ago, and it has my mind sitting here turning. Is the comparison to IKEA, right? Mm-hmm. You said, I put IKEA things together. I can frame this stuff. No. But what I think is really interesting, and what we haven't touched on, and I don't think we'll go down this road, but we're talking about custom homes, and, you know, which is a smaller market than, you know, the run-of-the-mill homes. Most of the population just wants a house, right?
You're talking MLR side, the custom framing side.
I just mean custom in general, where it's like this progression into panelizing, and this is going to sound absolutely wild, John. You're probably going to hate it, but it's like, imagine if there was an IKEA where you could literally shop the aisles and pick up walls.
You're right.
Johnny would have a gun to his head.
But it's like, but
you need
think
a big
of
shopping cart.
Big flat bag cart. But I get what I'm getting at is that, you know, there's a huge market that if you could simplify the way a house goes up, like a small house, like a little cape, 20 by 30 cape, and you could package that thing together like you guys do for the
Roebuck.
Yeah, like the Habitat for Humanity you guys put up.
That's a good example. You know, we have a builder who also does his own frames, established on the Cape, just sticking his toe in the water with this. Okay, can't bring himself to do gables with us, but he'll say, I have this job. Could I get a price on just all exteriors? I'll do the interiors. I'll do, you know. But what he found is that he can get ahead of the game. He can get ahead of his numbers, and he can get ahead of the project by just doing that. And he'll come around because his guys are gonna be like, we like these walls. Why can't we have the gables? You know, I mean, so again, it's organic, but that's an example. People will say, you know, we'll do the interiors, but
I just think that this is just the start of this evolution, and being able to bring it down to a more, I guess what I'm getting at is I love really custom homes, there's a part of me that really wants to help the affordable home market, where it's like, how do we make them more affordable, and how do we make, you know, just housing in general, you know, where it's like, yeah, you don't need it. I don't need a fancy house. I just want a simple house. And if that's, you know, panelization, where it literally, again, I'm sitting here just imagining it, but like being complete walls, where it's like, hey, I need a 30-foot exterior wall with 3 windows in it. I want dense packed cellulose, and I want, you know, a plaster wall, and you stand it up and you tape the seams and it's done. And I know that they've done that with
modular.
Yeah, I know they've done that with modular, and it's
worked out awesome.
Well, yeah, it has and it hasn't.
There's.
I think it's heavy on hasn't.
Sure, but it doesn't
mean
mean
it's IKEA. They sold it to college students so they could throw it out after the semester.
But it's not. But that's just the beginning of it, right? Like IKEA is massively successful. And a lot of
in a disposable market.
You guys old enough to remember you had a flip phone, and then the person at Verizon said, "This flip phone has a camera," and you're like, "The fuck am I going to use a camera on my phone?" You know. It evolves. Nature hates a vacuum. You know, it evolves. You know.
My iPhone turned into a flip phone the other week.
Well, and the third one this week.
I bought a new phone because my camera broke, and I'm like, wait, I just spent $1,000 on a camera. Like, I could just buy a camera and leave my phone.
You're like, yeah, it gets sucked having to buy that disposable.
But the market has said, no, you can't do that. If you do that, you have to get one of those phones that has enormous buttons that you see like on, late night television shows for, 80-year-olds. That's the phone you're going to get. It only does that. It's just going to make you buy the product.
Well, Nick, I think you're right. I think there is a need for that 100%, especially with homeless and everything else. Right. But I think I joked about the Sears Roebuck kits. Back in the day when I grew up, that was you'd start renovating one house and then the next house would be exactly the same. And there was only a couple options that they had to pick from. But I think that's something that's real, where whether it's panels that are kits that are designed by a certain architect that are done. And I think the architect I love is Russell Versace. I think he's out of the Carolinas or Georgia. He designed these amazing houses called Pennywise homes that were super cute, great historic, character, and he made them all prefab. Mm. And that, I think, is the answer you're going for, is how do you simplify the system where these people have pre-ordered this kit from shingles right down to the interiors.
That's what, yeah.
And then you just got to put a slab on grade, whether the area has it, but it's very affordable and you know what you get. The variables are very small. And I think that is something that needs to be improved.
And there's even opportunities for certain product to be able to do that. For example, we had an inquiry. There was a developer that had a piece of land and wanted to put up a series of very nice sheds because he was going to rent that space as remote office. I'm working from home. I just need to get to an office, it's the 8x10 space that's Wi-Fi and everything, and it was just a safe space to go. And you do them back to back and have a bunch of them. I look forward to the day that we get an architect that says we're going to do a small house cluster, and we, Cape Cod Panel, we'll bang them all out. We'll get them out to you,
But if that's,
I might actually do that.
And this is where I agree with John. Is like, if that's what I was doing every day and I like working outside and being on the job, if that's what I was doing every day and it was that monotony, I wouldn't do it anymore. It's like I would be out.
Oh yeah, it's just projects, that you can do.
Yeah, money makers, but it's like, yeah. I mean, I'm all for it, but I just don't want to be there.
Yeah, Mikey's he just loves to be in the field, and every so often we throw raw meat at him and he eats it and he just.
And then I come into the shop and we have a meeting.
Yep. We have a meeting.
That's right. This is one of the meetings, I believe, right?
This would constitute a meeting. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Check that off.
Check that off the list.
Yep. One meeting down. So yeah, I just hope we can continue to do this the way that Mike has, articulated, and he has, he's had the vision, and we just try to support that vision by.
So what's the future? What are you guys working on that you're hoping to perfect over the next 24, 36 months?
I think, and Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be an investment in technology that would allow us a particular piece of machinery where we could really excel at roof systems and be able to
jump the broom to take that next step to be able to say, Cape Cod Panel, we can cut your rafters, and we do rafter packages.
I thought it was going to be a 3D printer.
Yes, but it prints.
Just print that roof.
But to be able to have that technology, there's a capital investment. There's a technician that needs to be able to do that. You're not going to run it 24 hours a day, even though you could because of issues. So
I will be sleeping next to it.
Right, and Mike will be sleeping next to it. But to be able to say, yep, we're going to do this house because we built it 3 times for this developer, and out it goes, and all the parts are there. Everything works. We get it put together, and it goes up. But it's still custom. It's still part of a design, and it still minimizes all the errors and the risks. That I think would be the.
And I know that's something you hate hearing too, Johnny, but it's like there's, we're dealing with wood, obviously, and we're dealing with human error. And that's always something I try to avoid is human error or dummy proofing something, making sure that nothing can go wrong, or like trust that the guy knows how to use a skill saw or whatever it may be. And those little human errors that can happen, I know you don't want to hear, but it's like, I want to kind of eliminate all of them. It's like, I want to be, if I'm pre-building a roof and it's, 2 live valleys or a layover or whatever it may be, and we're doing that in the shop, which, takes a lot of thought to put together, especially when you're not laying it in place just yet. It's like, I want to know that those things are cut perfectly to what we figured out. Because one tiny little bump, especially in a scenario like that, you can waste a whole day trying to figure out what went wrong. It's like that computer I'm going to sleep next to won't do that.
I mean, this is not grounded in altruism. We're here in business, and by definition, we're here to make a profit, and if we can work smart, terrific. And if we can work smart and make some money on that, it's a natural. I mean, there is the craft, there is the trade, there's the beauty of it all going together. But at some point, we also have to say, we're not doing this for fun. We're doing this because we want and need to make money. And so if we can come up with a way to do that, and it works, let's do it. That's what we're here. That's what we're here for.
I'm down for it. I mean, you guys aren't near me, and I know you don't ship, but if you were, I'd be down for it.
I mean, Tyler's got a dump trailer.
Thank you.
And a new truck. He could probably pull a couple panels.
Yeah, a couple at a time. But the rate I move, I'd be fine.
So Jersey's a lot closer.
Yeah, and we don't, with all due respect to used car salesmen, we don't want to be used car salesmen and be like, if you just try this, just get in it. Ooh, you're gonna love it. It's like
I do that exact line.
That's actually how I met
even with
my
the shoulder
wife.
shake.
I got it from, dude. I mean, I know. But it's like we want to also work with forward-thinking people that don't really know what the next thing's going to be, but are working toward, no matter what. They're trying to innovate along with us. That's cool, I'm not going to try to.
Those are the most enjoyable people.
Yeah, we don't want to browbeat someone into doing this because it's no fun either. So that's why we say bring them in, bring everybody in. You can bring your architect, bring your designer, bring your customer. Come on in.
Will you get us chicken wings?
We don't give them chicken wings. We have an unlimited.
We don't have any chickens left.
No, we don't have chickens left. But we have an unlimited amount. We call it the sanitizing bar. It's like a salad bar. So you can dispense as much hand sanitizer as you want. You can go through masks. If you want gloves, you can have those. So that's our way of.
You want to fill your mask with sanitizer?
Sure. I don't know. Chicken wings can't sign. Chicken wings sounds better.
You do once you have the rubber gloves.
You can dip your chicken wings in hand sanitizer.
Don't put your rubber gloves on your hands.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. So
I think the key thing is to evolve without compromise. Like if that's my biggest hang up is that if I have to go to panelize and I have to simplify the system or the design, then I'm not going to panelize. It just there's no way around it. Like it's superior walls. It was too many corners or the soil material doesn't work out, then guess what? It's not that I'm changing the design. I'm not going with that process.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something you have to do every time. It's like,
yeah, if it fits, then run with it.
It's like a per job basis, because it's and that's how we treat everything we do. It's, we don't pre-build all the dormers. We don't pre-cut all the rafters on every single job. It's always a per job basis, and that's all based on like the timeline and the schedule and everything else that happens around us, where time just runs away. It's like there isn't enough time for anything. So it's like any little bit that we can gain, it's like, it's helpful, and you're going to bed a little less stressed out. You're not waking up at 2 a.m. and going to bed at 5 when your alarm goes off at 5:20.
And there's
5:22.
There's a little bit of credibility that goes with it too. We had a pretty established, builder on the Cape that said, by doing what you did on this enormous house, by doing what you did with the design, just the design alone, taking the time to do that, you saved the customer about $30,000 in change orders, and they saw that, all right, so this is, if you have a build schedule, you got to get this thing done because you got to get to the next one. You have a lot of commitments. It's something that helps with your pipeline as well. So if you need to pull the trigger sometime, we've had people saying, I'm on a short leash right now. I got to get this done. Let's panelize this. Okay, fine. We had 1 week to do it, and we did it, and they were extremely pleased. They framed it themselves, and one of our best clients now.
And then there was a job where it was a homeowner, but he's also a builder, and I think he's up in Boston. Yeah, I don't know if you remember his name. I'm Parker, but he couldn't wait for a price, so he took a price, got them in there right away. I want to say we've done 3 houses, and they just sheathed the roof that were way bigger than that. It's like if he just waited a week, 2 weeks, it's like the process would have been.
Oh yes,
you're a lot better. Yeah, I got Parker.
Yeah. So that happens too, And I think the premise of the whole conversation that we had.
I'm pretty sure it's a painting company.
This really needed to be done. I'm in trouble. My wife wants this. She needs it now. Okay, we'll work with you. We'll try to get it done. And then framing crew and this and that. And then it was like, I'm going to go with so and so because they said they can start on this date. It was like the concept of starting. It has to be like March 1st. It has to start. I'm like, well, okay. But
sounds like you needed a check.
100%. They took a deposit. They're going to pull the money back.
Yeah. When work commences.
That was the homeowner. Like, I think I got to get this started now. I'm like, well, give us 2 weeks. We'll get it going for you.
Yeah, the answer to that is you should have started sooner. Not put it on you guys. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, is that everyone tries to put it on somebody else. And it's up to you to say no, otherwise you fall into the same thing.
We were dealing with his wife. She wanted it up.
You're
tomorrow.
Absolutely right, though. You raise a very good point. But isn't it nice that when the chips are down, we had the ability to adapt and say, you know what? Okay, we can get this done for you. And this was someone who was also a builder elsewhere, who was really interested in it. But it was just that, stick watching on a Gantt chart, 1 or 2 weeks. It has to be, it's like, okay. I think 2.5 months later, I think there was getting to the roof.
Getting there. I mean, it did say painting on the side of their truck, so I'm not sure how.
They might be listening to this.
Good for them then, if it's a painting contractor doing that. I feel like
everyone's driving by that road, Parker Road, in their town going, is that the
That's decent timing.
Like, the sign says custom framing, design, and gutters. It's like,
yeah.
And deck removal.
Right.
Demo.
Yeah, painting's slow this time of year. Maybe there's an exterior painter.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to fill in some work,
Great when you cut in with a 6-inch brush, though. That helps the job go quicker.
I'm excited to see where things, where you guys take things. I know that you're developing the process for everything, but it sounds like you're on the right track. It's refreshing to see that, like, I don't know, you're looking to be more efficient, but you're not looking to take shortcuts and create a product, that's worthy of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to promote, and all that stuff. It's nice to see, and it is refreshing, and hopefully it can just spread the word a little bit and get it out there and help you guys out, and as the kind of help the industry as a whole.
Very kind of you. Thank you.
It was a blast, guys. I love you.
Yeah. You guys were all terrific.
I love you, Johnny.
Same, brother. I love you more when you're on site. Give me some time. I'll work this into my numbers.
When you're ready and when you are, we'll be happy to.
Joel's your salesman.
All you guys need is just make a field trip.
Yeah, right. I'm the GM. I run this business.
Nick will show you the way down the creepy road.
Oh, yeah.
Nick lives on a creepy road. Did you?
I do. Yeah.
Can't get much worse.
I don't think so. Someone didn't like the last podcast and smashed my window out or something. I don't know.
So watch out.
So how about you all? What's your next big thing?
I'm taking a vacation up to the Cape.
Hell yeah.
Cool. I'm sure Mike you can make accommodations, right?
You can build something.
Got plenty of room in the shop. Just build me a quick shed. I'll bring the family.
Whip something up.
Just a little 8x10 shed.
All I need is a little cabin.
No, really, what's the next big things for you guys?
Mike and I, and obviously Joel, we've talked about a couple projects, and still hoping to make those work. And we got big projects coming this year, which is exciting. And just continuing to innovate and grow the business and try to do the very best.
So keep an eye on the pipeline. You have to have a pipeline. It's good.
I don't think I ever have super lofty goals. I'm just trying to keep my head above water and not die.
That's a goal,
I mean, if I aim for that, even if I wind up a little below that, I'm still all right. I don't want to set it too low.
Won't be disappointed.
Well, last podcast we were talking about moving possibly. Is that still?
Yeah. So there's multiple reasons for that. I think a lot of it depends on. I think I could work anywhere and have built up a network that's large enough to, if we were to relocate, that I could kind of hit the ground running. Her job is somewhat specific, so it's tough to find a place that, would kind of be a little bit slower paced while still her being able to maintain her job, because nobody wants to stay home with kids.
I don't see why you guys don't just make a dream team and get it over with. It's
right. I mean,
I don't know. John and Nick, I don't know if they're willing to pay my fees,
Yes.
I don't know if I could work with Nick.
I have that
good point.
Conversation with Mike.
I like, as he said that, I could see John's eyes look at me. Like,
we have a couple miscues here and there. They're flags on my end.
John, can we at least get a commitment out of you that
you will, John.
You won't hate us as much?
Oh no, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not asking you to love us. Just don't hate us as much.
I understand where Johnny's coming from. No.
Well,
I want you to reproduce this in multiple regions.
Yeah, well, that's meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah, if there wasn't COVID, I'd hug you right now. Yep. Lift you off your feet and everything.
We would have done this in person.
Rip my mask right off.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not scared of COVID.
Let's get a big COVID. But yeah, But all of you are welcome. You know, I know, Nick, you've been here, but you're all welcome to come in, see lumps and bumps and, you know, what we do and what we try to do. We like people to say.
And Joel's not a huge Instagram guy, but I've got to get him tuned in, you guys, because it's like these guys all do. Like,
I'm convinced. And I also
cool
love
shit.
your generation, you three,
And they all give
Mikey, Johnny. Guys, this is your time. This is your time, you know?
John's on his way down. John's older. He's on his way down.
I'm on the back nine.
I was trying to
like the autumn.
try being
his
a
life.
16th hole, bud. Okay. That 16th hole is it's something. But yeah, I mean, you know, we can do something. It's your time. I love it. Like I said, most of the younger framers, the guys in business, they're trying to make their mark. They're the ones coming in. They get it. You know, maybe they get it because they can't find help. I don't know. You know?
I think you answered a lot of the questions
It might
for
just be
them.
too damn cold up there. The winters are too long. Like, screw this. I'm getting out of the cold.
We'll let them do it in the shop.
Yeah.
Everyone take off this winter. We got it taken care of.
Right. Not yet. We need the technology to come in.
All right, guys. Well, appreciate you being on and appreciate the invite, and I'm sure we'll schedule something real soon. Come check it out.
Yeah,
Definitely make it happen.
fun, guys. Thank you.
Come
Thank
around.
you.
We appreciate it.
Love you, Johnny.
Be safe,
See you
guys.
guys. Love you too.
See ya.
Peace.
That is.
And by the way, I think he
it's-
would definitely ship to New Jersey for you if you want to build something.
It's just super neat that, like, I feel as though the way that they evolved, like, he's even bidding stuff the same way.
Mhm.
It's almost just as if they've found a way to build stuff that's more efficient for them, and it's not even as if their entire purpose for doing that was to panelize. And I think that they've kind of shifted that way, but it's almost like anything that we do, if we've found a way to make it easier, faster, more efficient, and just integrated it into our work process, that's kind of how it came about for them. It wasn't like, hey, let's panelize everything right now. It's just like, hey, we have this job where we could, you know, this would be beneficial, advantageous to us for whatever reason, kind of shifted in that direction. And I also don't feel like they have their heels dug into the ground where they're saying, hey, everything needs to be built in the shop. You know, we can't make any changes. It can't be custom. They're looking to deliver the same product more efficiently.
Yeah.
And not really cut corners or cut out details or tell people they can't do certain things, which is cool.
For sure. We got a new review this week. It's all about balance. Great all-around podcast. I was all set. 2021 was going to be my year. I set out on my own, and then I listened to episode 155 and said, whoa, maybe I should pump the brakes. But after listening to episode 159 with Corbin Clay, I feel reinvigorated about making moves in 2021. Apparently, our podcast is a roller coaster ride. Ups and downs here. This in a nutshell is what makes the podcast so good. A healthy dose of reality balanced with just as much motivation while covering all aspects of life and the trades. Keep up the great work, guys. It's truly inspiring following along with you. Cheers, Nick. Speaking of Corbin Clay, we actually had him on a Clubhouse discussion just the other day. We did. If you guys aren't
crunching
on
numbers,
yeah. If you guys aren't on Clubhouse, you guys should get on Clubhouse. Gives us an opportunity to kind of sit around a round table discussion, join in, and we're actually going to be hosting every week, Tuesdays, 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys want to pop in, that will be our podcast after show. You guys might see us promoting that on Instagram. Otherwise, just get on the app and start
have some fun with it.
Yeah. It's a
did you say it's a app, audio. iPhone only app, right?
Correct.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah, because a couple of people had asked me that they couldn't find it, and I was like, don't quote me, but I believe it's an iPhone only.
Yeah,
or Apple only.
And it is an invite only, so if you know someone on there, they should be able to send you an invite to get in there.
Yeah, and if you log in and capture your username, it will run through your contacts and actually send someone in your contact that's already a member.
Right. Hey, do you want to let this person in?
Yeah.
If they like you and you get some friends, they'll probably do that.
Literally, I had people sending me their contacts. So
I have so many phone numbers. I'm like, with all due respect, I only have two left.
So many invites. And
I'm like, I'm trying to get my, group on. All right, guys. Well, you know where to find us. You can hit us up on iTunes with a 5-star review if we're doing a good job. If you think we should improve, there's a link in our Instagram profile with a Survey Monkey, so you can give us some constructive feedback. And as always, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. In the world of ever-increasing lead times and escalating pricing, how about a product line that gives you neither? That's right, even completely custom molding profiles are produced in just 2 weeks from Duration. And as other molding and siding product lines prices are marching upward, Duration remains the same. Get exactly what you want quickly, efficiently, and cost-effectively. And to learn more about Duration Poly Ash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. And be sure to check them out on IG.